Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We're back with another tech talk, as we do every week. We're actually doing it on the Saturday this time because yesterday I had to help out, do some different things, and yeah, it's been snowing a lot over here, so took a while to get all that sorted, but it's all done. It's all gravy. One of the things about the tech talks is if you want to have your stuff kind of shown or talked about, make sure to put a comment in the tech talk video, so we can have a look. So under this one, basically, and then we also do live stream out on Twitch if you want to kind of get some points in or discussion stuff as we go along. Today, we are actually going to do the Battle of Anzio in War Thunder, so that's going to be the main thing. I was actually going to play a different game for this, but I can't find many games, and this is something that War Thunder does really well. So because of how the tech talk works, I have to alt tab quite a lot to be able to bring up the questions, right? It isn't like an amount of screens issue, but it's just like a scrolling issue, right? So War Thunder is really good with alt tabbing. It doesn't cut like audio. It does if you have an application which is like full on the screen, it'll freeze the screen, but I don't obviously use that. But most other games are really bad with alt tabbing. Like they freeze the game, or the music cuts out, or something breaks, or literally just crashes the game. Like especially with small ones. The one recently I've been playing, which is okay with it, is Dawn of War 3. But yeah, Dawn of War 3 takes a lot of my unfortunate brain power, so I can't do that while also doing this. So yeah, it's something to at least think about in the future, but it is kind of fun. So let's get into the tech talk and see what was done. Obviously, we have good old Kawam-chan, who's done the timestamps. Very kind of him as always. So thank you very much for doing it. Oh yeah, make sure, so if you're interested in the collection stuff, make sure to pick up the decals on the market if you can on PC. I actually had 5 of the same decal, 5 of these ones, so I had to actually spend 40 gaijin cents on the other ones. They're 10 cents at the moment, so you can get yourself a nice weeby decal, pretty cheap, so make sure to set that up. Very similar to the Summer Extreme one. The other thing as well is there's probably another collection coming soon for the where is it? For this one, the game update ones that they do. So you can see here game update 2021 decals. They do them like every year, so there you go, 2021 to 2022, you could get the Drone Age decal. So if you don't have the game update ones, those ones kind of increase in price over time. So if you're a person who likes collections like I do, which I know is a small amount, but it's still kind of cool to get these extra things. Make sure to have a look at that stuff as we go around. Anyway, let's get to the questions. Once again, thank you to Karam-chan, and yeah, simple as. So we have Ulfred Tierson. Once again, a lovely name. Always enjoy saying it. Howdy Tech, hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right. It's been snowing a lot over here, and I've been working out a lot, which is good, but I have strained the good old glutimus maximus. So I have literally strained my ass, which is really fun. So my right side, including my thigh and my lower back, is killing me right now. So yeah, fun and enjoyable for all parties, I think. Hey Sal, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Sarge Moon. So yeah, I don't have everything, no. There's a lot of stuff I don't have. But yeah, so I'm doing well. I just need my body to actually work properly, and it'll get there. We've been working really heavily the last like 2.5 years, so it's not really too much of a surprise to have injuries or like little problems here and there. But this one is a pretty decent one, and I haven't since like 2 or 3 years ago. This is the first one I've had, which has kind of been annoying me for a few weeks. So I'm gonna go full rest, full hippie, and kind of just stretch and not really worry about stuff. Is there one thing you don't have but would like to have? Yeah, there is actually. Nice to see you, Will Parker and Daft Chief. Hopefully you guys are doing well. The one thing I would like to have is the T-32 camo for the Thunder League from like 2017 or whenever it was, because I couldn't get access to it because I didn't have the T-32 at the time, and I also couldn't grind it out because I wasn't using premium, and I was doing school stuff, so like university stuff, so that kind of sucked. But yeah, I'd like to have that, and some of the old vehicles that were removed, like the year twos and things like that. But yeah, that may come in the future. On the TDs, they could add additional rewards for kills at distance, say everything extra 200 meters more SL. Possibly also extra from destruction and actively scouted targets, and a little extra SL to the spotter for TD assists. Entice the TDs and scouts to work together. That's not a bad idea, actually. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. The idea of it takes a bit more skill to hit things from distance, so therefore you want to reward stuff from further distances. I'm kind of fine with that. I think that's a good idea, especially for TDs. Like we talked about it, right? Like there's just nothing really for TDs in terms of, you know, reasons to play them, especially since they nerfed a bunch of them more recently. So giving them a access to more rewards for kills, or because they did lower their SP cost, right? But yeah, I think that'll be fine. Then what you could do is you could do like a blanket change to all of them, and then you could work out which ones are more efficient compared to others, and then you could remove it from some, and then everything will be good. I wish they did that with the air spawns as well. There are still some vehicles which really should get air spawns right now, like the A7s and stuff, but yeah, they're just caught up in the rule book, which says that they shouldn't, you know, at the end of the day. You really want the Tiger event vehicle? I missed the opportunity. Well, my dad served on it, so I'm going to save up Gadget coin for it. I don't know how much it is nowadays, but yeah, the Tiger's a fun one. It's actually not too bad as well at the moment, so it's not a terrible pickup. I ground it out at the time, and it was a monster at the time, and it went through a period of not being very good, but now, since the BRs have been decompressed enough, it's probably pretty decent. But yeah, like, if the TD making, like, or trying to give TD something doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? It doesn't need to be a massive change. It just needs to be some incentive to just play them and have fun with them. Like, that's all. You don't need anything which, you know, does anything too nuts. And I think it's possible to do stuff like that. You know, whether it is like increased reward for kills, whether it's increased reward for whatever, and that would be positive. And I'd be fine with that. So then we have Maestro Real. So not like that fake Maestro. By the way, the Maestro cars are a bit odd. What's your opinion on a game mode for vehicles that includes tanks, air, and naval in one match on a large map? There could also be some AI enemies in the match too for extra points when killed. I think this would be refreshing as a new game mode with more fun vehicles. So the issue with that is you basically described a very, very ambiguous thing. So basically, let's slap everything together and see what happens. Now, this kind of works from a PvE point of view, because you don't have to account for a ton of different factors. But when it comes to a PvP one, especially a game which does have a competitive bent to it as War Thunder, what you'll end up doing is setting up a situation where people will only play specific vehicles. If you, I'll give you some examples, right? So in War Thunder itself, at the low echelons, you get a decent amount of, I suppose you class it as diversity or variety, but it's also still only around, you know, specific nations. As you go higher up in the echelons, it becomes less and less of variety, right? And basically, you end up with maybe 5% of the total vehicles at those BR ranges actually being played. And that's because people just want to play the strong stuff, or the things that they deem as strong, not necessarily the actual strong stuff. And that's just kind of how it goes, right? If you created a game mode which has all of these different things, which has, you know, a ton of vehicles around the place, and you know, a lot of ground stuff like flying around in their tanks trying to capture zones, aviation supporting them, and naval forces sat on the side fighting their own battle, and then you could, go between them. It all sounds really nice. But what ends up happening when people figure out the game mode and then just play one type of vehicle? Which happens all the time with these types of game modes and these ideas. How do you account for that? Do you force people to play different stuff? What do you do? Now, I honestly think when they were putting in naval forces, when they were just doing the coastal stuff, I honestly think they had an eye on this idea of completely combined armed game modes. Because coastal vehicles, the coastal ships in War Thunder do actually, most of them, not nowadays when they start adding in frigates and stuff like that, but coastal stuff like PT boats and general armored boats, they weren't too far away from standard ground vehicles, so you could maybe have them in the same map. But nowadays, definitely not. This idea of having this huge monolith of a game mode, which has everything in it, just wouldn't work. And if people want to play stuff like that, the best way to do it is to actually play RTSs. Play Wargame, or play World in Conflict, or Blitzkrieg, or anything which has these things, because that's the only place you're going to set that up. Because you have to, in order for it to work, you need to remove the human element of, everybody running around. Many games have tried these different things, these large, massive ideas, right? PlanetSide tried to do it. That game, which I always forget the name of, more recently tried to do it. They even tried to go nuts with the idea of supply chains and all of this, where players had to control everything. What happens is if you expand it too much, then people just become comfortable with controlling their area and not having any other areas where people actually fight. So it becomes a stationary thing. It happened a lot in PlanetSide, where you had one place which was completely dominated by one faction, and then you'd have another place which was completely dominated by another faction, and then nothing would really move, because it was just all about maintenance and making sure that you kept your area, and there's no need to attack anywhere else. And that sucks, that's not fun, it's not enjoyable, but it's what people do. There's so many games that have fallen into that problem. So yeah, it wouldn't work in War Thunder because you can't balance the vehicles. Yeah, even just EVE Online, right? Different places have their different areas, and then you don't really have any attacks or anything around the place. So yeah, it's like saying we need to make the game fun, or hey, wouldn't it be really cool if the game was balanced, or wouldn't it be really nice if everything was free? It's great concepts, and the problem is they're super ambiguous and need a lot more to them. Would it be cool to have a game mode with everything in it that works perfectly and everybody's happy? Would it be wonderful if world peace existed? Would it be wonderful if no one ever had to go hungry? All these things would be fantastic. But the problem is that isn't how the world works, It harkens back to one of the things that used to annoy me back in the day and has finally gone away because it became cringy finally, is the idea of people just going, why don't Gaijin just fix the game? Because it don't work, Life isn't like that. Star Citizen is going to try to attempt that this year, actually. Well, good luck to them. I'm sure it will fail. Since there isn't a time in recorded history where it hasn't failed. Or, sorry, failing is probably the wrong word, but it hasn't lived up to what it was supposed to do. Which is the idea of having, a continuous battlefield. Because people can't be awake for 24 hours a day, and it's impossible to get enough people invested to continue everything all the time and also have the communication. It's untenable. But who knows? Maybe 2024, where people have less attention span than ever and realize they could just go do something else to have more fun. and win, which to them is fun. Maybe now it'll work. After, I mean, stuff like that could have worked 20 years ago, and it did in certain circumstances, like certain MMOs and things like that. There's no way it works nowadays. So we have use it. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I'm doing good. Not too bad. Just pain, but pain's fine. It's manageable. Regarding the discussion about banning maps, I'd like to suggest the following. Open up far more maps for the BRs. Nowadays, it's not uncommon to see the exact same map 2, 3, 4, and even 5 times in a row, and I've not banned a single map. I have had a look at most of the maps and don't understand the rationale for limiting many of the maps. If not permanently, there may be several mid-maps on rotation. Okay, so let's go through it. The reason why the map rotation is in the setup that it is now is straight up because of the fact that they're using data from players. So they added in the map rotation filter. They said that they were going to use it as a barometer to find out what people liked at specific BRs at specific times. They're now implementing that. So what you're seeing is what people like. Now, there's a problem with this because, you know, as we've talked about before, what people like changes over time. And sometimes the data that you receive does not catch up with, you know, the stuff. If you're using data from, let's say, a year ago, for example, think about a year ago compared to now in terms of, like, high-tier aviation and what was in the game, or 2 years ago. Like, imagine if you're using data from 2 years ago, right? Not very useful. So that's why we have this limited map pool at each of the BRs. Because people have said that this is what they like. And you know, a few years ago, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, everybody said all the maps were trash and they wanted more maps and they wanted more created and, you know, they wanted more community-based maps or what people want to see, you know, that whole vocal minority thing that I keep getting lambasted about. Yeah. So that happened. So you got the map rotation filter to get the data, right? To see what people like. And now this is what you get. And once again, it's one of those conversations which will never change. Because it's like there's never gonna be a period of time where people are happy with what they see. And also, as we talked about last time, the more that people play a specific thing, the more comfortable they get with it, and therefore they don't want to see anything else because they're used to it, right? It's just how it is. So the reason we're in this situation is because they did what people asked for a few years ago. And now we have the thing that people asked for, so now people don't like it because you always have to be different or, you know, things change. It's a revolving door at the end of the day. And the only thing that sticks true is the data. And the only issue with the data is it might be outdated. Good evening, Marlo. Nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing alright today. But yeah, so, I don't know. I mean, at the start of this year, they definitely expanded some of the map pools. I don't know why, but yeah, it seems like they added a few more in. Or maybe the people who use the map rotation filter during events, right, decided to stop playing for a bit because the event's over. So now you get a bit more variety of what's actually at these things. You know, I mean, they put it like this, right? So let's have a look at preferred maps. So at this BR that I'm at, so I can see all of Carpathians, Kuban, Finland, Tunisia, Karelia, Poland, Test Site, Advance to the Rhine, let's see, Golden Quarry, Seversk, Frozen Pass, Stalingrad, Iberian, Abandoned Factory, Eastern Europe, Fields of Normandy, Sinai, Japan, thank God not Volochylamsk, Ash River, Port Novorossiysk, Sweden, cargo port. That's nuts, you know? That's a crazy amount of maps. But yeah, so it'll be a continuous topic and it'll never end because of human psychology. So we have Mobius. Let's see what Mobius says. What are your thoughts on adding the F-106 Delta Dart into the game? With the modifications done in the 70s to give it an M61 20mm gun and its primitive AA missiles, would let it be like a lead up to the F-104 or follow up in terms of performance before you jump to the F-5E? There's the Voodoo and the Dart, right? Those are like the two that haven't been added, which everybody goes on about. The Delta Dart doesn't have a gun, and yeah, I'm sure there's a modification with it with a gun. But I mean, in general, sure. I feel like those things will get added. Like I don't see why they wouldn't. They've stayed away from these like interceptor aircraft which rely heavily on missiles. A lot because of vehicles they've added which heavily rely on missiles not being very good. The problem, if I remember, with the F-106 is it wasn't just... It isn't like you're using... you won't use... The vehicle was at that weird stage where they actually believed the AIM-4 was a good idea. And if you haven't noticed, we don't have any AIM-4s in the game. The good old AIM-4 Falcon. And the reason for that is AIM-4s need direct hit. They're not a proximity fuse. They need to directly hit the target to set off. Now, in War Thunder, with ping being a thing and desync being a thing, can you imagine the amount of times you would have a game where somebody would like fire an AIM-4 at somebody and it just wouldn't do anything, and there would be so much complaining about it. Like I don't know if you guys remember, like even a few months ago, where a bunch of like missiles were just going straight through other vehicles, like, you know, they were just phasing through them and just not hitting them because there was an issue with the flight camera. Imagine that, but every game. And also not having missiles that like overload very well, and also just not great. Like the success chance of the AIM-4 was really bad, right? If I'm thinking of the right one. And yeah, there's a reason why they went to the AIM-7 and also the AIM-9 pretty quick from that missile. So they learned their lessons pretty quick with that one. So that munition would be out of question, right? So then the other ones you have is of course the 20mm, which is a refit one. So you'd have to put in the refit of the vehicle, which I'm sure some people would be fine with. You know, they've done it many times. It's just how it is. And then the other one is the Genie. Now the Genie, I can never see added to the game. The Genie is a ridiculous... It's an air-to-air nuclear missile. Is basically the way to put it. So it's yeah, it's oh sorry, it's not a... I don't think it's a missile. I think it's a rocket. It's an air-to-air rocket / missile, right? So that's what it's designed to do. So yeah. So basically, in the game terms, if they add in this vehicle, and they add it in after the refit, it would have a Vulcan, right? That's it. But at the same time, it can go Mach 2, right? So it's also super maneuverable. And I don't think it had... I don't think the early versions had countermeasures. So I don't think that would either work either. Yeah, it was an interceptor, so it was designed to shoot up you know, hit high altitude bombers and then go down again, right? So it's kind of like the Lightning in that way, but the Lightning actually had slightly better weaponry that fits the game a bit better. So yeah, I honestly don't know how they could add that without kind of breaking the thing. You know how we've talked about how there's a lot of vehicles in the game that are super reliant on their weaponry and their flight performance is, you know, circumspect, but they get carried by their weaponry. The question is what happens when you have the opposite? So you don't have very good weaponry, but you have really good flight performance. Now, usually those types of vehicles actually decrease in BR. When they really shouldn't, by the way. Oh my god, hello. They really shouldn't. Because of the fact that, you know, it's just about kind of being able to aim the weaponry, but a lot of people find that super hard to do in War Thunder. So yeah, I honestly feel like I'd be very surprised to ever see something like that, or if we do see it, it's just going to be a weird event vehicle that is very unbalanced. That goes around, kind of like the P-59 in a way. I think it's way more likely we see stuff like the Voodoo, because I think the Voodoo had a little bit more conventional stuff, if I remember. Because it was from the 50s, and also you have a ton of different variants of it. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, once again, the Voodoo's just like an AIM-4 or Genie launcher, so maybe not. Like, I don't know. Whatever they decide to do, it's not going to be pretty. What about things like the TSR-2? I mean, I personally wouldn't like to add it, but I'm sure they will. If they're gonna add the TSR-2, they should actually add the actual TSR-2. You know, the one that was prototyped, not the fiction that it could have been. Same with the one from Canada, whatever that one was. But yeah, I'm sure they'll eventually add both, right? It's just, first of all, those types of vehicles don't really fit in the game too well. So then we have Frank Bradley. Oh, let's try and go this way. Hey, TEC, hope all is well. Yeah, it's going alright. Just having a good January. Relaxing, pretty much. Like, not doing too much and just taking a chill pill. I have a bit of a tinfoil hat theory I'd like your opinion on. Uh-oh. I think that the reason why we didn't get a squadron vehicle in the last update is because one wasn't ready for Italy or France. Ooh. Fair enough. There are only two countries without a squadron vehicle in the game, and Gaijin is going to avoid the controversy of one of the two countries being the last one to get a squadron vehicle. Ooh. Oh, there's another guy there. Squadron vehicle in the next update, one for both countries mentioned above. Also, what would you want to be the first squadron vehicle for these two countries? Personally, I would like the Leclerc UAE and the Tiger ARH helicopter for France, and the Sablex HIFV or Impala Mark II jet for Italy. Cheers and take care. You two. I don't think they're worried about a controversy between giving the last squadron vehicles to the new countries, or to the countries that miss them. I honestly think they are more worried about, if they're going to be worried about that stuff, it's more about the fact that they just don't have them. So, like, they would want them to have them, right? If that was like a worry, so it would just be adding them as soon as they could. So yeah, the reason why France and Italy don't, well, the reason why Italy specifically doesn't have a squadron vehicle is because it was the least played nation for the longest time. So they probably didn't even have plans for a squadron vehicle for that. And for France, I mean, they're full of event vehicles, right? So if they really wanted to, they could have just made one of the event vehicles a squadron vehicle. Like that new battle pass vehicle that's coming in, you know, the Triumphant, that could have been a good squadron vehicle. So I don't think it's the lack of, you know, that the vehicles aren't available, or, you know, they want to do something different with them. I honestly think it's just the lack of interest in those areas of the tech trees. For me, I've always thought squadron vehicles are done wrong by Gaijin anyway. Like, I get that they want to like hype them up and they want people to be really interested in them, so that's why they always make them high tier or high BR. But squadron vehicles was a perfect opportunity for Gaijin to be able to fill out certain areas of the tech tree, give people a vehicle that they could research to get them kind of interested in the tech tree itself. So kind of how you get those like mid-tier premiums for battle passes or mid-tier premiums for events. They could have easily done that but for squadron vehicles, and it would have been so much better, and also wouldn't have just made a lot of the matchmaking at high tier super janky. Like with stuff like the M1A1 AIM, for example, just causing so many issues, and also stuff like the T80UM and things like that. I honestly think giving people more access quicker to higher echelons is fine, because, you know, you want everybody to research everything. But by doing that, you're putting them in super negative positions where they're just going to get trounced and have a negative time because they don't have lineups and they don't know kind of what's going on. So that just sucks. So for me, mid-tier squadron vehicles would have been much better. So, and, you know, even just like copies of tech tree ones with different camos. The Sublinder would have been a good a good squadron vehicle. For Italy, a Hungarian Tiger, instead of it being a premium, or maybe the Tiger H1 for Italy. Maybe a Panzer IV premium from Hungary, right? I think those are much more interesting than, hey, here's a new Leclerc. Don't you love Leclercs? I love Leclercs. Here's a prototype Leclerc. It's just a Leclerc with less armor. It's kind of like the TKX, right, for the Japanese. Hey, look. Hey, guys, look. It's a Type 10. Isn't that awesome? Oh, now we have the TKX, which is the prototype of the Type 10. But it's basically exactly the same as the Type 10 in the game. Oh, okay. Oh, and we've added another one. And it's exactly the same. Oh, okay. Like, when is the point where you turn around and go, who cares? It's just another Type 10. Even with the minor nations, right? And that's how I see a lot of these vehicles, for these high tier stuff. And I don't want squadron vehicles to be hyper unique vehicles. I would rather squadron vehicles be additions to lineups that you can get. And so therefore I'd prefer them to be mid tier instead of high tier, because we see what happens with these high tier ones. But no, I honestly don't think they're worried about the fallout, because if let's say they add one to one side and the other side gets pissy, like, who cares? People get annoyed about it for 2 or 3 days, and then you just move on, and then it gets added later on anyway, and everybody forgets about it because goldfish mentality is the way forward. So it's just what happens all the time, like in it's what happens all the time in War Thunder now. Get annoyed about something for like 3 or 4 days, and then after getting annoyed about it for 3 or 4 days, move on to the next thing, and then forget the other thing existed. And then in like a year, you do like a compilation of the things that you got annoyed about, and then people go, oh yeah, I remember that. It was like something that lasted for like 2 days, and then you just move on, right? Yeah, true, Papa Stalin. What we need more past for the devs is a random modification to a Type 90, which adds like a radio, because that's super important. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. If a person gets annoyed about the fact that a vehicle gets added to one nation and another nation doesn't get access to a vehicle at the same time of the same type, just ignore their thoughts. They are useless from a discussion point of view, and the main thing that you have to understand is the way that this stuff works is it's a continuous addition setup. So if a nation doesn't get something in like one update, they'll probably get something in the next one. Gaijin over the last like 3 or 4 years have made it so each nation gets something every update, which is kind of nuts when you think about it. The planning that has to go into that and the amount of stuff that goes on. But yeah, the one thing you should never listen to for any opinions on anything is nation mains. People who only play a specific nation and only talk about a specific nation. You'll get a heavily biased point of view from that. So we have Nerd 101, Fantasy Freak. Ooh. Honestly, I think this matters little because a great majority of people play only one nation, so they wait and demand vehicles for their nation whilst missing out on hundreds of vehicles available in other trees. Yeah, and that's a mentality issue and should be fixed. That's why the people who get laid more are people who play more nations. You know, it's just how it goes. Statistically, a fact. Source me. But nah, it's yeah. Nation mains in general are insufferable. A lot of the time, because you can sit there for like you can basically have the same conversations over and over again about the same topics because they're the only topics they can go through. It's really boring. So then we have Hey Tech. Over the years of playing the game, I always thought it would be cool if they put in a new PvE mode for tanks. I was thinking something along the lines of what they did for helis, but do it for tanks or include tanks in the mode where some guys are pushing in their tanks up to the lines, maybe infiltrating a base or something. I think it would be a welcome addition to the game for someone who wants a more casual ground experience. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I agree. I would be fine with it. The way I would love them to do it is how when War Thunder started, they imported the single missions and the dynamic campaigns and the historical campaigns from their previous game, Wings of Prey. Like you can find them here, right? There's a bunch of missions that you can do, which are really fun and interesting. And you can actually play these when the servers are down, which is quite fun. Hey, Dr. Froggle, nice to see you. So, I personally think they should add in mission packs for single missions, but you know, pay like $2 to $3 to $5 for them, and then give you like 20 missions. If you complete the missions, you know, maybe you get a video, kind of like how they did in the historical campaign stuff, where you know each area like has a video that you can watch and look at, you know, which is commentated by Stephen Fry, by the way, which is pretty cool. So for me, I would like them to add stuff like that, to give a bit of history and also to give kind of like a single player idea. So I don't think it would take too much away from the game, and the rewards don't have to be crazy high. I also think it's a way that you could involve more World War One stuff in the game, and that would be cool. Like even if it was, as I said, like kind of like an expansion or like a DLC, just so they can kind of work out how many people are involved in this or how many people want something like this. They did actually do a set of things for that though. Like they did do a set of like kind of PvE events which is similar to what you were talking about either last year or the year before, which is pretty cool. So yeah, they're obviously working more on PvE stuff because you know that's what people have talked about, and as the age of some War Thunder players really gets up there, like that's the content that they're super interested in. For me, like I've kind of gone back to my roots a little bit more recently, and I've been playing a lot of RTS stuff, because I really like RTSs. I think it's fun, you know, playing stuff like Supreme Commander. As I said, we've been doing the campaign on Dawn of War 3. I know a lot of people don't like Dawn of War 3. For me, I really don't like the resource stuff they did, but everything else is fine. We've only had one hard crash in like 7 missions. But yeah, Company of Heroes, Men of War 2 is coming out this year. Obviously, Gates of Hell had an expansion at the end of last year. Like, there's a ton of stuff like that going on, which is really fun and really enjoyable. And I would like a similar experience in War Thunder, which is why I was super into the World War mode stuff until, you know, they went a little bit crazy with it. So for me, I think, honestly, the way that War Thunder is right now and the way that it's set up, it could benefit from a single mission setup in just a little way. I don't really like the idea of having, you know, a massive PvE part of the game, because I saw what it did to Armored Warfare, and I've seen what it's done to a bunch of other games, where people, like, there is just a set of people now who grind out games just to get the stuff in the games. So not play for fun, but play to, like, grind. You know, I've been accused of this many times, but, you know, for me it isn't true. I just kind of like, you know, grinding out stuff, but also for me I'm very goal orientated, right? And the the fact is, like, people like that do exist, so you have to kind of like give them a little carrot to do stuff with. And I think, you know, having like a camo at the end of the missions, you don't even have to do like a vehicle, just, you know, hey, play these like 5 missions in a Stuart. You're in North Africa, you know, in a Stuart. You have these 3 areas to attack. You have to attack them and assault them. Maybe you could bring along like 3 other people. You know, maybe you could have a setup where people are where you have like a squad together and you could all work together, and then you just kind of go from there. Hey, stay lifted, nice to see you. And if you complete them all to like a certain level, you get a camo for the Stuart. Easy, right? There's a bunch of people who make single missions. A lot of them, you know, I don't think do it anymore, because the problem with the single missions is as you update the game, it breaks them. And that probably is at least an idea that they've thought about, and maybe one of the limiting factors of all of these things. But it'd still be nice to see them, at least from my point of view. I'd be down. Then we have C76 Caravan. Well, yes, regarding the discussion about people and preference changes, there are cases where the person changed and not the thing. But in the case of War Thunder, there have been changes that people didn't like because these removed elements which people joined the game for. Yeah, I agree. Like, there is definitely that. I think, right, so I don't actually think that much is removed from War Thunder. Like, let's be honest, right? If you think about the additions to War Thunder and the amount that's been removed, the amount that's been removed is incredibly small. Like, if we're talking about like vehicles or maps and things like that, it's tiny. The problem with War Thunder is it constantly improves, in quotes, right? So the idea is a continuous setup, kind of like any MMO, where it just has more and more stuff going on all the time. So what this does is it obviously limits it limits what people found enjoyment from before, because maybe you really like this mechanic or this vehicle or this BR, and then they add in like 2 or 3 or 4 other vehicles of that BR, and it kind of just makes that vehicle crap, right? But yeah, the thing I was kind of bringing up with the conversation is it isn't just as simple as the game has changed, therefore, you know, therefore bad. The game in general might have actually improved in every single way, but maybe the person has changed. Maybe the hardware they're using has changed. Maybe the amount of time that they can actually put into the game has changed. All of these things are factors that are just never brought up. So it's more about the fact that I would like to see a situation where more of these things are talked about and people can start kind of reflecting on themselves to see if there are reasons why they like certain things, or why their reasons may have changed, or maybe their life experiences have changed. So people don't just go straight towards that I'm annoyed and this needs to be fixed back to what it was before because I'm annoyed, right? That's the way, at least, that I see it. And, you know, if the conclusion at the end of it is that the thing has changed, and even if you have stayed stationary and the stuff that you play stays stationary, but it feels different because of the changes, then that's fine. You know, that's completely valid. But I think there's a lot of other conversations which are interesting to have and should also be folded into that. Because we're already doing that conversation, right? Everybody's already at that conversation of the idea that, okay, this thing's changed and I don't like it. Like, that's the thing that is constantly talked about. So why not add in all of these other ideas and see where you can get to. You know, broaden the horizon a little bit. And if you come to the same conclusion, that's fine. Don't really matter. Like, it just means that at least you've thought about some different things. That's cool. Let's just finish this guy off super quick. There you go. We need a dad joke. So let's get that sorted. Did you hear the one about the pop fly? Never mind, it would go way over your head. Lovely. So we have Kilda. Let's see what Kilda says. Hello, TEC. I disagree with Britain 8.3 and 8.7 suffering. For 8.3, you have a banger lineup of the Elephant Mark 1, Roycat Mark, Vickers Mark 3, Warrior and ZA35. I feel like none of those vehicles suffer, and I have a great and easy time using them. For 8.7, you have the Mark 3, Mark 5, Vickers does not suffer at all. I feel like it should be 9.0. Chieftains are really good. They may be my favourite tanks at 8.7 since they work so well. Sorry, but I had to write this in defence for British. I'm not from Britain. It's all good. I don't believe in the idea that, you know, nationality plays a huge part in all that stuff. It's fair. Like, as I said, I do well in the Chieftains. I just get hammered over and over again. I don't know what goes on with it. I think the Warrior's really nice. The ZA35 is pretty decent. I got a nuke in it once, I think. And then the Elephant Mark 1 is fine. Just targeting speed's awful. The Roycat's awful. I really don't like the gun on it. But yeah, the major thing is it's not that the lineups are bad. The first thing is your cast that you can bring along with it is pretty weak, especially at 8.3. At 8.7, it's not too bad because you have, of course, the Scimitar, which can work really well. Hey, Serbian Speed, I'm doing well, man. Just doing the tech talk and getting the page of history done. So it's not, you know, it's not that bad. The major issue with the lineup is other nations just being way better. Like, that 8.3 lineup is really good until you have a look at what America, Russia, and also Germany has at 9.0 and 9.3. And when you realize that is the matchmaking that you get pretty much most of the time, it's nuts. The Chieftain Mark 10 is 9.0. The Leopard A1A1 is 9.0. A1A1's pretty much better in it in every single way. The 1A5 is 9.3. The TAM 2IP I think is 9.3. Like, you just get battered. Like, and as I said, like, looking at my stats with something like Britain, I've played the Chieftains a lot. Like, the Chieftain you can see here, with plus 60, 264 battles, 38% win rate. Chieftain Mark 5, 92 battles, plus 50. Once again, we're doing good in these vehicles. 39% win rate, right? It sucks. Like, this is my experience. Plus 15 in this. 45% win rate. Same with the Marksman, even though we're doing really well with it. And that's from a point of view where my standard win rate is 56%. And you can see I'm doing well, like, in the games. We're trading well, we're doing good, everything's all nice. But I don't know what's happening, but I'm just getting hammered in the face over and over again. So it doesn't matter how well I do individually, because even if I get, let's say, like 10 kills in a game, or if I get even like 4 or 5 kills and I just control an area, everything else just falls apart. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about that voodoo BR for me, but like the stats just back it all up, right? Like, so individually, I feel like I'm doing okay in the vehicles. Like, not just like the KDs, but the positions I'm taking feel good. I'm getting some a little bit slower, which is a problem. But I literally, I'm just there, and everything feels great. And I do my job, get a few kills, control the area, everything feels good. And then I just look around and go, what the hell happened? Like, It's as if like Rambo's just turned up and just nuked the rest of my team, and I'm just sat there on an island going, well, it turns out I just lose again. And that happens over and over and over again. And I don't play these vehicles any differently to like anything else. Like when I'm not like I don't like, you know, I don't it's just a weird buggy area for me. And I don't know why. It's just odd. And everywhere else in the game, I don't have this problem. Really, like there's a few other kind of buggy BRs for different nations, but yeah, for some reason that area is just shot for me. I don't know why. I need to give the Vickers Mark 11 a go though, so that's something that I will do. It should be pretty good. So we have Insane Robert. Hello, Tech. Hi. To clarify what I meant by stalling last time, I talked about the MiG-21 and other aircraft last week. If you do some aggressive maneuvers below certain speeds with an aircraft which has a small wing profile, or it is known of having an unstable aerodynamic profile, no stability augmentation devices, the plane is prone of stalling or getting into an uncontrolled dive. This happens because the yeah, I know what a stall is, don't worry. There's also engine stalling when on a float. Yes, I know what that is. Having that in mind, do you believe that Gaijin should adjust the flight models of the planes so that you can actually force them into stalling in AirRB if you're not careful at low speeds and give an additional advantage to slow jets with better wing profiles for turning at slow speeds? Or should Gaijin buff instead other planes a bit in other aspects? It just feels wrong and unfair to me to see some notorious jets for crashing be forgiving in flight, while others have to suffer realistic limitations in their flight performance if you force your jet limits for a split second and boom, you're dead because wing couldn't take it. That's fair. I get it's annoying, but I remember talking about it this last time. It is controllable, right? Like when you get a handle of where the limits are for these vehicles, you are able to control it in a decent setup. The other thing to also mention about it is, once again, there are vehicles that don't rip their wings, but instead they compress the living shit out of them. So what this basically means is if you get above a certain speed, you just cannot turn. The question I would pose in all of these situations with all of these types of vehicles is, would you rather be able to turn harder and be able to manage the limitation, or would you prefer to just not even have that ability? Right? So the idea is, would you rather have a Sabre which can rip its wing and will, you know, if you have boosters installed and if you turn too hard at certain speeds, its wing will fall off? Or would you prefer a vehicle which can't even get to that point, you know, for that, right? So that's pretty much it at the end of the day for that. The other thing is, if you want to force a stall, you can do quite easily. The one thing that if you want to do what you're asking, right? With that, the simple thing is to switching your control settings and then being able to do stuff that you shouldn't usually be able to do. So, for example, toggle control mode in planes. So you can switch, but you can't see on the screen, but you can switch between to full real controls from realistic or simulated controls, whatever you use, right? And you can do those things. It just takes a bit of practice. I would honestly say the best person to talk to about this stuff is probably Wingling Dragon when it comes down to it. So yeah, I would also, yeah, I'd like a situation where you can fully turn the bloody instructor off. Sorry, but yeah, simple as that. But yeah, so do you want a scenario where you can pull as hard as you want, but your wing falls off, or a scenario where you compress so much you can't even get to that point? For me, I picked the first option, because then if I learn the limitations of the vehicle, then I can, you know, put it into practice and go from there. That's why for me, it's a lot easier using stuff like it's a lot easier using stuff like the FAU2, for example, instead of something like the MiG-19. The MiG-19 I found a pain to fly a lot of the time. It was obviously very good, you know, it was obviously very fast, but it's the combination of its compression and its weapons just pissed me off. is probably the best way of putting it, because there's a lot of scenarios where I'm just sat there and I'm like, God damn, if I was in so many other vehicles, I could just turn on this guy. Or I could, you know, it would be easier to get guns on target. And also you're not massively limited in the amount of ammunition you have, which is a huge thing. Should these things be more realistic if they need to be? Sure. I feel like if you want to get that experience in RB, you can use full real controls and get that experience. I don't know whether it's 100% there, but yeah. The reason why War Thunder is as successful as it is because it bridged the gap between simulation and arcade gameplay. It's the first game to do it, and it's, you know, one of the only games to still do it after such a long time. And it's because, you know, they added in those things to make it easier to play. But you can always turn those off if you use full real controls. Nice to see you, 996, 997, 991. Hopefully you're doing good, man. Hopefully life's alright and you're doing well. Always a pleasure. Hopefully life is treating you well, man. We're just doing the tech talk right now. So we have Tis a Gunner. Let's just go here. Hey Tech, what's your opinion on the spawn point based or kill streak calling like a V1 rocket for Germany or Katyusha barrage for Russia or a long tom bombardment for the US, basically a BR and nation specific kill streak? I mean, I'm fine with it. I would rather it be map specific though, because there are some nations that just don't have those things. so yeah, I would prefer if it was map specific, not nation specific. If it's nation specific, like what do you give Israel, right? Or what do you give somebody like China, for example? So yeah, I'm fine with it. Just yeah, shouldn't be nation specific. Everything else is fine with it though. Just as a general idea. I like the idea of it not being map ending, so just a thing which can like nuke a certain area, probably not a huge area, but at least, you know, something, and also just in a controlled thing. You could even have it so you can't control where it goes on the map. So maybe it goes like somewhere in the central area and becomes like kind of a thing to see, but it's not something that you can like pinpoint strike somebody with precision, right? Like maybe that's the way to go. But no, I like the idea of it. They do have a V1 model technically in the game. You could also do like, you know, railway bombardments and stuff like that. The only issue I have is literally as we've talked about, it ain't really fun just getting nuked by things you can't see and can't do anything about. You know, it's the whole artillery thing again, right? So maybe they could do it in like an event game mode to like test it out and see how people enjoy it. I still remember with the repair Cella from the Atomic Heart event where it was pretty useless at the start because of the worm and how it would randomly spawn after you used it, so you could get like one kill and then nothing would really happen. And then they changed it so the actual worm just spawns pretty much where it destroyed somebody, and then they also reduced its time for chilling, so it actually took longer for a person to spawn in after being killed by it than it did for the worm itself to respawn. And also, it didn't matter when it came to what's the word I'm looking for? The spawn protection. The worm didn't care about spawn protection, so you could just nuke somebody over and over and over again, and they couldn't do anything about it. So that's why testing of these things pretty important. So for me, I'm fine with them to test them and have like a game mode if they're in. You know, whether it's like a funny mode or whether it's like, you know, Bass of Arrakis and they bring that back and bring these things in. But in the standard game mode, I would want a lot of testing before it's done. Because one of the problems, right, and you see it all the time with like certain things, like especially during events. Like hopefully the BR changes this time has kind of shown people what happens during these events now that you can use event vehicles at any BR, people just might massively abuse them to get certain things done. So, for example, stuff like what's the word? Stuff like the Panzerbill is finally going up after a ton of time, or the J6K1 is going up, and that's directly because people are using them during the events, right? So it's just how it is. So for me, it's just the standard fact that if you can get that sorted, then it'll be alright. Thank you for the gifted sub 9969 Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. I just don't want a bunch of veteran players flocking to low tiers to get these kill streaks to nuke people in, because we already have people who play like 20,000 games in a single low tier vehicle to just hammer people and not really care. But if you can solve that, then it's not too much of a problem. So we have Raptor. Hi Tech. With the new Battle Pass starting next soon, I hope they have some quality of life improvements to it, such as allowing people to claim rewards without having to accept the previous ones. I also would like them to not have the daily task resets increase the cost of the special task resets and vice versa. Yeah, it's kind of annoying that it does that. Hey Pepino, nice to see you. There are some QL improvements. It would be nice for like an auto accept thing. Stuff like challenges not being as timed would be a cool thing. And also at the same time, just, you know, as I said, increasing the time of them at the end of the day. Thank you for the subscription, Rusty Sniper. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. But yeah, the other thing is also having some additional maybe challenges to do to unlock something else, or even just to make the battle pass a bit easier. Like for me, like it's getting to a point where I'm not getting tired of the battle pass, but it's like I'm finding that doing the dailies and stuff, I'm like playing the game specifically the same way like a lot of the time. So it's just like with that, I want to do a lot of other stuff in the game, but because of the way that I play, it doesn't always work very well with the battle pass, because in order to do the stuff efficiently, you can't use a bunch of donkey vehicles, right? And a lot of the time, the vehicles that I actually have left to research, yeah, some of them are like high tier stuff, which are pretty easy to use. But a lot of them are just like donkey vehicles that nobody plays because, you know, it's kind of hard to use them compared to other stuff because they don't fit very well in the game. So that's more of like a personal thing though. Like I could also not go for, you know, the crazy high rewards in the battle pass. Like every battle pass I've hit level 150, and I want to continue doing that, but I just need to find a sustainable way of doing it. Whether it's 1 month just focusing on dailies, then the next month focusing on specials, I don't know. But yeah, it's quality of life stuff would be super nice in the battle pass, especially since we have a new year, right? So new year should signal new things, new ideas, new challenges, and new thoughts. We haven't really had any battle pass changes in a long time of how it actually works. So yeah, I would be fine with some new additions. I did a video today talking about the things I'd like to see offered in the battle pass, like each battle pass having like one voice line in it, each battle pass having, maybe flag pendants for a vehicle, even just like a camo for a standard tech tree vehicle somewhere. Just little things like that, just to make it a little bit more worth it and less of oh well, you're past level 75 now. I hope you enjoy war bonds. Until you get to 100, then 125, then 150. We'll see what they decide to do. But I agree. Improvements. The system itself as an individual system works really well. But at the same time, improvements are always positive. It's never good to not continue to improve. And with a game like War Thunder, where a bunch of it improves all the time, it's important to continue that, right? So we have another user. If there's a chance for a Greek tech tree to be added to War Thunder, how would it be added? In which tech tree would it have higher chances to be added in? If we talk about tanks, it could be in Germany, but planes is quite a tricky question because it got A7Es, F4Es, Dassaults. Give an opinion of this concept. Have a good day. Sure. The Greeks buy anything that they can get their hands on because they're afraid of Turkey and have Germany there to bail them out when they can't pay anything economically. So basically what you have is a situation where Greece is a hodgepodge, or a gypsy nation is the other way of putting it. They're a little bit of everything, which means that they don't really fit anywhere, and therefore you can't really add in a sub-nation for them. Instead of that, you would have individual vehicles kind of all over the place. You remember how the TAMs got added to Germany from Argentina? Same idea, right? So they could add a Leopard 2 Greek to Germany, or they could add an aviation vehicle to that. Like it would be fine at the end of the day. The issue, yeah. So the Greece as a nation doesn't fit in War Thunder, right? There isn't really a nation that they can add which does fit in War Thunder now. So. Apart from obviously the ones we have, and even then there's a few which are a bit dodgy. So for me, I would say that just adding individual vehicles to individual trees, they'll have the flag, they'll bolster lineups, and I don't just mean like premiums, I mean like tech tree stuff. What case am I getting? Do you mean for the one from yesterday, the one that you posted, the Liancourt one? The Liancourt one is the one which we picked up, and the RAM, by the way. So the I got the message a little bit late, but we did actually got that RAM. So we got the DDR5 one. So for the PC. By the way, yesterday Matrix helped us build a PC for the missus. So the missus is getting upgraded so she can play The Sims or something. So yeah, it's going the new 3-pack of white RGB fans. Right, so it has them with it, right? So they should just install them anyway. So I don't have to worry about that. Like it comes with it. So it should be okay. What nation she's gonna main? Well, she likes playing The Sims. So I think she's gonna main lawyer. And millions of babies and dogs and all that. So yeah, but no, she's mainly gonna use it as a work PC. The case comes with 0 fans, right? So it's just not gonna have any fans. So do I have to go back there and order a bunch of other stuff to put in it as well? What nation does the missus name in Sims? I don't know, actually. I don't really, like... Me and her have very different gaming preferences, so... Right, so I have to go back up there to... Alright, okay. She doesn't kill off her Sims, no. She used to do the... She used to... If she got a Sim that she didn't like, and they were trying to woo one of her partners, she would do the swimming pool lock, you know. She also... There was one time where she did do the oven trick. But I don't think you can do that stuff on the later versions. Could you send me the link to the fans then, Matrix? Well, also, doesn't it need a Wi-Fi thing as well? Isn't that also something? I knew we were forgetting something. Such a pain. Because my case came with fans, so Wi-Fi's on the Mobo. Yeah, but don't you have to like plug like the Wi-Fi adapter into the thing? Because that's what I had to do with my second one. I'm sure that's a thing, right? Alright. What about the cooler for the CPU? Right, so yeah, but do I need like a Wi-Fi adapter for the thing? Do I need to get one of those too? No. Because I was thinking about like cooling for the thing. Stock cooler? Okay, so they should install that, right? Alright, so let's see. Did you send me... Could you send me the link to the fans? So I can go in tonight? No Wi-Fi card needed? Okay. Oh, right, so you don't have to plug anything in, it's just there anyway? Alright, that's good. Let's see if they're open. I could maybe give them a call. Sorry, this is just we built a PC, as I said yesterday. The Canada computers over here, if you don't know what Canada computers are, they're fantastic when it comes to this stuff. But also at the same time, it's something that, you know, obviously creating PCs and stuff like that is something I'm pretty bad at. So luckily I know Matrix and have done for many years, and he's fantastic at this stuff, so makes it a lot easier for me. Hey German Detrago, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. I can give him a call later, Matrix. See if I have to go in or not. Anyway, back to things. So yeah, the interesting thing about Greece, if I don't know if you guys have noticed, there's some weird thing going on, and I only started noticing it when I started paying attention to market skins, like when we started doing those videos, and it's happened again, by the way. There is some weird conspiracy is probably not the word to use, but for some reason, okay, so favoritism is a strong word, but if you have a look at a lot of War Thunder and general business, favoritism is something that happens a lot, and that's okay up to a point. The favoritism becomes a problem when the product gets worse because of it, right? So if you have favoritism towards a business because they create a good product or they create the best product, then that's okay. You know, there's no issues with that. The issue is when favoritism becomes collusion, which lessens the product and makes it worse. Now, there's this weird thing that, if you haven't noticed, with market skins in War Thunder, there is a massive overrepresentation of Greek or Hellenic camouflages. And I haven't looked into who makes these camouflages, Like, I don't know if it's the same person or something. But for some reason, there's just a million Greek camos. And they're all very basic, and they all don't really add too much to, like, the overall thing. It's just a very, very basic camouflage. And you look at it and you go, so is, like, something dodgy going on here, right? Because when you see mediocrity, especially when it's, like, surrounded by all these other things, like, is there a person who works at Gaijin and makes these decisions who is Greek, who's, you know, quite nationalistic in that way? Is there, like, certain relationships between people, which definitely has happened in the past and happens to this day when it comes to skin creators and Gaijin slash people who work with Gaijin? Is there, like, that going on, or what's happening? Because it makes no sense. Not because, like, you know, Greece isn't a country with a military or anything. It's just the fact that they're massively overrepresented compared to pretty much every other nation in the game, especially nations which just don't, you know, that just don't, what's the word? That aren't in the game. Have you looked up real Greek camos, or are they just bad in real life? Well, no, I don't. Bad is the wrong word. They're standard, right? So they're just like standard historical Greek camos. So it's like, you know, bicolor, tricolor with some markings on it. Yeah, like that. That's the thing. So they're not bad camos in that way. They're just ones which are just very basic and very fundamental, which is kind of dull, but at the same time, it doesn't make them bad. It just means that the representation of them in the game is dull, and that's just how it goes, right? So yeah, it's just kind of odd. Like and you see these patterns sometimes in War Thunder, and also just in general products. Like, you know, when you have a look at trends, it's like, okay, so all of these, like, lines of this are going to the left, and then there's this one or two which are slightly going to the right. So you always focus on the ones that are going to the right, because it's like, why are those slightly different? And then you usually find, you know, there's specific reasons for it. But in this case, you know, to be quite honest, I don't really care, because there's there's a lot of nepotism when it comes to War Thunder stuff anyway, especially from the content side of things. So for me, like, it's no big deal. It just seems weird that that keeps happening. It doesn't seem to happen with, like, any other nation or any other set of vehicles that are around the place. And it might just be fact that they know that, you know, Greece is never going to be a nation in War Thunder. So maybe it's like, okay, well, this is a way we can give Greek players something in the game. It could be as simple as that, right? Or it could be special relationships. Like, who knows? Anything's possible. So we have Type 10. Hey Tech, I saw an M18 tries to do a drive-by, but he failed and got himself flipped, and I was laughing my ass off because of a free kill. It is quite funny when that happens. I crewed the Type 93, and I've never been more confused why I paid so much SL for this thing. But luckily, there is a better vehicle after it. I already messed up in 2024 by putting the 211 in my lineup. Such a disaster of a Chinese tank. It is. It's an absolutely awful vehicle, the 211. The JM33 and the Type 90 is not that bad for me in an up tier, since I usually know where to aim and my reaction time. Well, that's good. Man, if only I can download War Thunder Live skins on Xbox. It pains me. The Type 10 has been recorded doing a 3-second reload. Imagine how ridiculous that would be in War Thunder. That's all. Have a nice day, and water good, and pray to the snail. Yeah, the reload thing is always interesting, especially with the manual reload stuff, because I don't know how they do it with the automatic stuff, but with the manual stuff, it's a balancing factor, right? So I'm pretty sure they do the same thing with the automatic stuff as well. Like, it would be kind of nuts if, you know, they had that low of things. The 211 is awful, and not just because it's awful. It also removed the PT-76 from the game for China. So double whammy. Not good. Very sad. Hopefully Japan gets some cool stuff this year. They still have some pretty big holes in their tech trees, but I'm sure at the end of the day they can have some good stuff. So anything is possible. Anything is good. Anything is all right, which is quite nice. So hopefully, we go ahead. It also, actually, talking about the Type 93 thing, it does bring up an interesting point. And this is something I brought up when we were doing all of the research changes talks. Because it was really nice to see all the research changes, coming through last year. It was all very, very positive. But there was one thing that, I've been going on about for a long time, which sucks. Vehicles at the same BR are not necessarily the same in efficiency because they're designed for different roles. So, for example, Leopard 2A7 Floracrad or Leopard 2A6 Floracrad, right? Or the Tunguska or the T80U or something like that. These vehicles fit very fundamentally different areas of the game. What this basically means is one vehicle is going to be much more useful in more scenarios than the other vehicle is. So for the Floracrad, for example, it's nice to have in your lineup, but you're not going to first spawn it unless you're trying to do an SBA challenge or something like that, right? Or you're really sick of helicopters and you want to try and deal with that issue before it becomes crazy, right? So the issue with stuff like the Floracrad is it's exactly the same RP cost as the later Leopards. So why would you ever grind the Floracrad over the Leopard? You just wouldn't. It would be a silly idea, and that's why not a ton of people do it first. So eventually this doesn't become a problem because more people will have researched out the vehicles, and therefore you can kind of, go from there. So it's overall fine. But in that setup where you have, that time period where you've researched the Leopard 2 and you want to play it, but you don't have, the extra AA alongside of it because of the fact it's so expensive and there was no reason to go for that one first, then, it kind of sucks. I would actually prefer if there was some kind of incentive for vehicles which are more specialized to actually research them over the ones which are less specialized. So, for example, something like a Floracrad would be cheaper to research than a Leopard 2. Now, this would probably mean that the Leopard 2 would go up in price, or it will go up in research, which obviously wouldn't be great for everybody. But at the same time, it would mean that people wouldn't be stuck in these situations where they don't have access to the vehicles that they want access to, and they could actually have a bit of fun and not get caught out because they haven't researched the right vehicle. I think that would be nice, and hopefully in the future they think about it, just because, the unequalness of a lot of these things. Thank you for the subscriptions, Aramace. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much, man. And nice to see you. Happy anniversary. Hopefully you're having a good Saturday. Sorry I missed the stream yesterday. And at the same time, we'll be going forward and enjoying ourselves. Should be a good week this week. Should be all right at the end of the day. Let's see. Let's go over here. Don't really like these types of maps, so we'll see how it goes. So we have Danisha Koju. Hi Tech, hope you're well. Yeah, I'm doing alright. Heard that the Russian naval AK-630M is getting a ground variant. What's your thoughts? I'm quite worried about it. I don't know what the AK-630M is. Does anybody know what that is? Is that 30mm like gun? Like that one? The one that's in the one that's on some of the vehicles we have in the game, like the Hyperfire 30mm. Double Gatling Shorad gun? Yeah, it's that one. So, I mean, I don't know why it would be any different compared to what it is in the naval side of things. Like, well, I suppose it would probably have a smaller a smaller ammunition size, but like, I don't know. The problem with stuff like that is I get why they exist and I get why people are scared of them, but at the same time, like if you're trying to destroy something, I feel like instead of firing like a million small things at it, it's probably still better just to hit it with a big thing. Just, you know, in terms of physics and how it works. There's also a lot less that can go wrong. But I don't see why it would be really that different. Like I don't know what you'd even mount it to at the end of the day. Oh. Like what would be the reason for it, right? Like don't they already have like 30mm? Well, they do because they use like the BMPs, the BMDs, the Terminators, right? All those things still have 30mm that they use. Yeah, I mean, I suppose we'll see what goes on. I'm not really too bothered by it. Like, it's just a gun. The major thing I'd be worried about in terms of that is ammo capacity. Because the reason why it's quite nice to mount on ships is because obviously you have quite a large space for ammunition storage. How do you do that on a mobile thing? And if you do it just on a stationary area, so you just like plonk it somewhere. I mean, we've had systems like that for like decades now, so it's not really that different, you know? But if you stick it on a chassis and somehow make it so it has enough ammo capacity to be useful and also, you know, not have any mechanical issues, it's kind of interesting to think about. So I suppose we'll see. But from my point of view, living in Canada and, you know, being over here and not over there, it's not really, you know, on the forefront of my mind. Kind of interesting to think about though. Let's just bomb this guy. Oop. So we have like your cut G. Let's see. I think it's time we see the Bob Semple and its two variants, and its machine gun variant and the other variant with the 37. The event for them to be acquired can be called Sheet Metal Battles or Corrugated Catastrophe. Yeah, I think it'll come, right? Like it's the fact that we got the TOG and, you know, the way that a lot of missions go nowadays, and you know, the further we go along in War Thunder, there's more chance of this stuff happening every time. Like, it would be silly, it would be completely silly to ever bet against anything not coming to the game nowadays, especially with what we've seen in the past. So I'm pretty sure we'll get that as an event vehicle, just as a, hey, so yeah, you guys wanted this, right? Look at it, woo, and then it'll be added, and then in a week everyone will forget about it because the hype's dead, and that is one of the key things, right? Measuring the hype and when to release something. When is the right time to let it loose? That's kind of hard to do, you know. Not easy at all. But they will do it. And we have JTR. Hello, Tech of the Tech Talks. Hello, JTR of the YouTube comment section. Just something that crossed my mind, but what do you think they could add as a subtree to the French tree? Switzerland. Before reading the rest of it. Switzerland makes the most sense. Spain as well. Just as general ideas. I don't really like thinking too much about too much about the idea of having nations which are fully politically there or not. But nowadays I'm much more pragmatic in how I see these things. So for France, it's very simple: Switzerland and Spain. Both of those make complete sense to add to the tech tree. They have ties, they have links, they, even have commonalities in certain language bases. Like, you could add Belgium to France as well. You could add, you could add all Luxembourg if you really felt like it. Like, you could do all these things, right? So Switzerland makes the most sense, especially with the amount of vehicles that they have. And Spain also makes sense. And pretty much any European nation makes sense in either of those. Whether you want to do trade deals, EU deals, or commonalities in language, nationality, territory, whatever it is, like, it works. So you don't have to really worry about it at the end of the day. Like, there's always going to be ties. So for me, the perfect thing for the French tree would be getting Switzerland's stuff. I think that would be fantastic, because the Swiss stuff doesn't need to be in the German tech tree, but France would greatly benefit from getting a bunch of really cool Swiss vehicles, just like how Italy benefited from getting a bunch of Hungarian vehicles and also Romanian stuff as we go along. It would be nice. Then we have speed trees. Let's see. Good morning, afternoon, tech. Good morning. Hopefully you're doing alright today. Canada is not real. I wish it was real, but we're only a hat. It's been a while, but I've been catching up after finishing my private pilot's license and have another point to add to the CAS discussion from this video. I agree that CAS spawn points need to be upped, but another problem is that other than visually and just knowing how annoying CAS is, when it comes to playing either CAP, Combat Air Patrol, spawning in a fighter with air belts and no bombs, just own CAS or SPAA, destroying planes isn't rewarding in the slightest. I've had games when I play CAP in an A6M5 and deny enemy 4+ planes and get less score than a random dude on the ground that got 2 ground kills and assist. Especially when you consider the spawn point economy, where even right now, destroying a plane is removing 400+ SP. Let's just do this real quick. 400+ SP from the enemy team. Whoop. Not including the fact that the plane could have gone on to destroy 3 or 4 tanks of your team with impunity if not contested. It's mental how little SLRP score it rewards. Cap is some of the most fun I've had playing War Thunder Ground, but alas, it just doesn't reward past that. I think upping the rewards would also help to incentivize players to play fighters SPA more. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it probably would. That's it. Increasing rewards in a certain area will make people want to play it more. I agree with that. The problem that I think Gaijin has is the same one that they've had for a while when it comes to this stuff. For them, they see a kill in ground as easier to get than in air battles, which is why per kill or per score or whatever you want to say, you get way more bang for your buck in air realistic than you do in ground, right? So, and that's, for longevity of the games, but also other reasons too, such as, there's less kills to go around and they just value them way higher. So, yeah, it's just kind of how it goes at the end of the day. So they would have to kind of rebalance that and make it so certain vehicles, like, what needs to happen is this, okay? Loadout based BRs and spawns, okay, should be seen as way more important than what the vehicle is. How do I put this? So a lot of the game is balanced around what vehicles are labeled as. So for example, when they changed the M18 Hellcat from a tank destroyer to a light tank, it meant that they gave it scouting, but also it changed its SP cost at the time, and also gave it access to the binoculars modification, meaning that it got a big bump in how useful it was, right? Now imagine if you have a situation where you have a fighter right? But now you can load it up with bombs, so it's basically just become a CAS aircraft, and then you can do the fighter roll afterwards, which is what happens a lot of the time. What if you could create a system where if you mount bombs on the plane, you get a bonus reward for destroying ground vehicles, but if you don't mount bombs in a fighter or in a whatever, or rockets, you got bonus rewards for destroying air vehicles, but also minimized rewards for the other side of things. So it's basically you specifically reacting to what's happening on the battlefield and trying to, you know, go ahead with it and fight it from that point of view. And you get rewarded for the types of play that you do from it. Now, I think that would be really cool. But it's not really how their system works, because it seems like their system is more based around what the vehicle is labeled as. And if the vehicle is labeled as whatever, then it has these factors attributed to it, and then there's some like exceptions to it, but mainly that's how it works, right? So that to me is or would be something that would be nice to see changed. So instead of it being more based on what type of vehicle it is, just base it on the loadout, and different loadouts give different rewards based on what you do, instead of having these kind of basically multi-role fighters, which they just keep giving more and more and more ordnance to, by the way, if you haven't noticed. The pick of the litter, this could easily incentivize other vehicles being played as well. The SBAA one's easy, right? Like, you just have to increase the amount of points you get for a kill. Like, if they want to do that. I don't actually, I'm not really worried about that part. I think generally, like, I feel like when I play SPAAs, I get enough. I don't get a ton of score, but I get enough, like, modification research and stuff like that. But yeah, the mid-tier SPAs is a little bit tougher because it's harder to stay alive, and a lot of your score or a lot of your RP and SL comes from longevity now, right? So, for example, in this battle, if I just like leave it right now, compared to playing an extra 10 minutes, but like not even really doing anything else, I would make way more because of that system. So the quick actions in the game are more of the issue, right? Like, it's why you get, it feels like you get a lot less for like a missile kill compared to a gun kill, because technically a missile kill is just a hit and then maybe a crit and then a kill, whereas doing guns can be like several hits and then also, you know, a bunch of other stuff going on at the same time. So it's interesting to think about, you know, how it works, and I'm sure over the time, especially this year, now that, you know, they feel like they're in a good place with the economy stuff, we'll probably get a bunch of those types of changes going forward, which would be nice. You know, we already had like the skill-based bonuses stuff, and you know, a lot of the other research stuff, so you do get more for doing more now. It's just maybe they could focus it on specific areas for specific types of vehicles, so people feel like they're being rewarded a decent amount, you know? Thank you for the subscription, Shiroyama Samurai. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. That's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. War Thunder Wiki live. I have way too much random crap in my head. Like, the War Thunder Wiki, like, just talking about that, by the way, has really come on leaps and bounds. It's still, as long as you completely forget about the playstyle section of a lot of the vehicles, and also forget about the history section, since that's usually slightly biased, the actual just general information you can get about a vehicle is pretty good. Like, it's not too bad. So we have Not Sean. Responding to my question, turboprop's definitely a form of mixed propulsion, but since the jet engine is directly powering the prop, I believe it's just the one turboprop engine. So petrol missiles are like rocket launched torpedoes. They'll fly out to a mile within the target, only mounted on the Neptunes. Oddly, and the mixed propulsion aircraft could fill out the rank 4-5 areas. Jet and prop rockets, and jets definitely also classify as mixed propulsion. BR for most of the aircraft would be 6070, as their props, which use the jet engines for speed boosts. I mean, yeah, it could definitely happen, I suppose. Like, it has been kind of odd that we haven't seen any of those things, and I don't see why we wouldn't see them in the future. Like that, you know, it's that area of 1945 to 1950 is pretty well represented in the game. But the parts of it which are pretty poorly represented are the actual prototype ideas during that time. So, for example, there's a lot of vehicles like, you know, stuff like the M46, M26, M47, you know, technically the early stages of supersonic for America, stuff like the MiG-15, you know, even the LA-9, which is a 1946 aircraft, if you didn't know that. You know, it's pretty well represented. But from a prototype standpoint, like a lot of the weird ideas, not necessarily like turboprop stuff, but like mixed propulsion stuff from, you know, the Russians and the early jet era stuff from a lot of nations is just not really there. Like they pretty much just skipped that area for prototypes and just went straight to like production stuff. And I don't really know why, because a lot of other areas they're kind of like spattered around, right? Like you have a bunch of prototype vehicles and you have a bunch of production vehicles. But for some reason, that's just not the case for that area of the game. Kind of interesting to look into why. Might be because it's harder to model it. Might be because they don't have a system for it. That could 100% be true. You know, might be that they're thinking about how to do it in the future, or maybe they feel like a lot of those vehicles are just very specific on how they play, like the Gannet, for example, right, and how that plays. I don't know how stuff like the Gannet would fit in the game, but you know, it's something that's at least talked about and thought about. But yeah, it would be cool to see him. You know, hopefully we see an expansion of him in the next few years. Maybe we could get an update, adding like a premium, and then see how many people are interested, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, it would be nice. Well, yeah, that's the thing, Shuriyama, right? Like, eventually they're gonna keep doing the top tier stuff, but they always throw in a few mid tier stuff at the same time, especially if they're testing out new mechanics and stuff. So then we have Pig Stick. Wish there was a way to see past event vehicles in game. I'm pretty sure you can on PC, but for console, we have to go to a laptop PC to look at things or watch videos that could be outdated because of volumetric and other stuff. I like what they did with the test drive map, but I wish they would add a tank changer or the other, because going on a test drive as an Abrams and the first tank you see is an IT-1 is kind of dumb. I'd say it's worse than an air test flight because the vehicles don't even respawn. Yeah, a little bit of changeability would be good. It was nice what they did with it. Hey, Holy Rune, nice to see you. But yeah, I think in general, that idea, the test drive stuff is good, but being able to pick which vehicles are where would be nice. Just so you could tailor it a bit more to your experience. I don't know how it works on console, but yeah, basically you can see all the vehicles that are available on the market on PC. So yeah, they're just kind of sat there, and they have like different things on them, like different. They have different markings on them, basically telling you where they're from and all that. But if that's not there on console, then that's ridiculous. Like one of the biggest issue that Warthog has had is the fact that a lot of this idea that different people have access to different amounts of information, right? And that's no good. So they should make it so they are visible on on console so you can see them. On console, go to the camo boxes, and if there's a camo for a certain event vehicle, you can test drive it. Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's a way around it. But even then, like, if there's one without one, you can't do it. Yeah, I think every single vehicle that has been in the game should be shown in the tech trees. There shouldn't be any hidden ones that just don't exist. Because you'll see a vehicle in the battle and you'll be like, where the hell's that come from? like, what's going on there? And that's not fair. You know, that's no good. So for me, I think just even if you can't get access to them, they still should be there so you can see them. But then maybe more people will be like, well, why can't we get access to them? And then we can actually start having these, you know, good old conversations about these things. Maybe more people should get access to them, you know. Simple as. Give people access. You know, life is better when everybody gets a piece of the pie. Especially after so many years. God damn. But yeah, I think that definitely should happen. But if that doesn't exist on console, that's a bit silly. They should definitely rethink that. So we have a Gulag Kulak. Hi Tech, hope you're doing well. Yeah, I'm alright. Doing okay. Let's see. I really want team voice chat in War Thunder, especially in simulator battles. It will be relatively easy to implement and make team play easier. It could even be opt-in, that is off by default, and we could always mute the people whose values we don't agree with. We could just blacklist people in the chat. Also, it would be awesome if Guardians spent more time making new maps instead of new vehicles. I feel like with the map stuff, they've been pretty good on. Like, they've released a metric ton of maps, like, this year. Or not, obviously not this year, but last year. If you actually think about, like, the amount that's come out, it's pretty nuts. Especially, like, with the reworks and stuff. But hopefully we get more. Obviously, it's always nice to see more of that stuff. The voice thing, yeah, I agree. I would actually really like a system like that. I've talked about it before that I think it would be really good to have that. I don't like this idea of this. I've never liked this idea of having a game which is supposed to be team orientated, but it just isn't, right? It's a team in the sense that there is, you know, people on each side. But when you actually think about how, you know, all of this stuff works, hardly any of it is actual team play. The team play of War Thunder is working around your teammates. It isn't like communicating to push a specific area, or it's not actually doing stuff together. It's just sitting there and going, okay, so this person is going to try and do this. I'm going to try and react to that. And that's not really team play. That's just being there and seeing with your eyes, right? So I've always been in favor of some kind of voice chat. You know, liability and stuff might be an issue, but you know, it's not a huge deal at the end of the day. But yeah, it's something that I'm not too worried about doing. So yeah, I would like a system like that. I think that would be pretty good at the same time. So I'm hoping they do that, and I feel like they're probably not going to. The system's there, like they literally have, as we talked about before, they have voice already in the game. It's there when you squad up with people, if you want to use it, or even in squadrons, you know, it exists. You can chat to your squadron stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. Yeah, at the end of the day. Yeah, that's the thing. Like for me, I would have to turn off voice chat because I stream. So like, can you imagine streaming with voice chat on? Like I know that, you know, a lot of people doing COD and, you know, it's fine and everybody's okay with it, but I ain't taking a chance. Like, you know, especially since the way that Twitch rules work is You know, you're not gonna get blamed for what other people do in your games, but if you don't actively try and stop it, then you are blamed for it, right? So like, okay, because there's an option to turn it off, then I'm gonna have to turn it off then. Like, it's just how it is. So we have, hey Tech, nice to hear about your non-orphan lifestyle changes. The game will suck the life out of you if you let it. I mean, maybe, but that's kind of like anything, right? Like, I feel a lot of people get super engrossed in War Thunder. I don't really know why. For me, it's like sometimes I kind of get overwhelmed by things, but that's more on the content side of things and not the actual game. The game has always felt pretty chill to me, but I get that some people do get like that. Regarding your comments on the simple solution to cast is to jack up SP, the sad thing is that simple solutions have been tried already without much intended effect and massive knock-on effects in other game modes. Raise SP costs and you both push more cast planes into Air RB, where they're seen as a nuisance dragging down teams. What? As well as making AA SAMs near worthless to spawn in unless they can kill tanks. New to the weaponry, and you're risking making air AI unkillable and also otherwise unsinkable player battleships become that much more hard to take out. Cast is one of those interconnected problems the Enlisted Q&A example was talking about. It just isn't. Like, it isn't at all. People do not, like, right. The vast majority of people who are spawning in cast planes in ground realistic are doing it to get kills and in order to win the battle. They're not doing it because they specifically want to play cast planes. If they specifically wanted to play cast planes, as you said, they can just go play Air RB or Air AB and they can spawn them first. There isn't this barrier in front of them to actually spawn them in. So wouldn't they just go to those modes anyway because that's what they want to play and they don't want to, they don't want to play anything else? The reason why people go into planes, not even necessarily cast planes, but just planes in general in ground RB, is because you can control the battlefield from there so much easier than you can in other areas. So it makes sense for you to go into a plane because of how powerful the plane is. In Air RB, something like most cast planes are nowhere near as powerful as that. A lot of them actually super struggle because of the fact that they are very limited in terms of what they can do on the battlefield. So let's say you increase the SP costs of cast planes, or just let's say cast in general in ground RB. Will that push people to go and play Air RB so they can play these vehicles? I mean, maybe. But if people are trying to focus on grinding out these vehicles anyway, they're playing Air RB anyway, because the research that you get from Air RB is so much more prolific than it is in ground. So I don't think that people would just go into Air RB with these aircraft in a cast-related role because they can't do it in ground. And if they did, that's fine. Like, they can do that. But I would put it like this. I would like to see it happen before believing it can happen. Because to me, in my head, the reason why people are playing the things is not linked specifically to grinding the things out. So I might be wrong. If that is the case, fair enough. But pretty much everybody I've talked to, the reason why you heavily use aviation in ground is because of its ability to be very powerful. If you then, if you then take that to realistic, that's, not going to be the case. So, but yeah, if that is the reason, like that is nuts. At the same time, yes, AAs would have less of a use if you have less CAS. But at the moment, AAs are very weak compared to the CAS elements that they have to fight against. So the other thing is not increasing SP costs of all planes in ground realistic. It's increasing SP costs of the specific loadouts, which are incredibly powerful. They did try this before in a minor way, but they didn't go far enough. They did it with the K-50, and they did it with a few other vehicles, but they needed to go harder at it, and they needed to address a lot of other vehicles, especially now that we're at a point where they've added independent bomb drops to so many different vehicles that you can now, for example, with the P-47 get 3 bomb drops off, plus all the 50 cals, plus all the superiority stuff as well. So the simple thing for me is, let's say all of this stuff happens, okay? I'm gonna need to see it happen, because the logic doesn't withstand testimony. The vehicles that during those times where they increased the SP costs of those types of vehicles, were they used more in other game modes? Maybe. Did I see it? Not really. So yeah, it would just be one of those things I would just have to see at the end of the day. Seeing is believing at the end of the day. So I honestly think it is a very simple solution, and since it hasn't been tried to its full extent, it should be tried fully, so people can actually have fun and not have a tough time. And if people do go to the other game modes to play these vehicles, then so be it. Maybe then they can actually start balancing these things. The actual way of fixing this, without even going through spawn point costs or anything like that, is literally just give them different BRs based on game mode and even based on loadout. Like, you know, limit the loadouts of the vehicles if you really have to. But yeah, that's another thing that it isn't the fact they've never talked about that in the way that they don't want to do it. They've always talked about it in the way that they can't do it. So that's obviously something that's crossed their mind once or twice. Hence, I think the solution is to use Simulator's SP system, 1k SP at a match start, no ability to earn more. Give people default planes in their decks like naval does. Then while CAS can spawn early game in such a system, so can fighters. Fight fire with fire, let each man or woman solve their CAS problem for themselves. No, this never works, and we have so many this is why Simulator's so busted, by the way. Because you cannot control what your teammates spawn, and you cannot control what the enemy spawns, and you also cannot see what the enemy spawns. So now you've just created a scenario where there's more chances of you just getting fully caught out by people spawning stuff you are unprepared for. And not just as individuals, but as a team. That's why in simulator battles you'll have times where someone will just spawn in a helicopter where there's no counters to them and just nuke a whole match and then move on. And then you get 2 or 3 people who squad together and they do that over and over and over again. And they can't be countered because you don't know it's coming. And if you decide to try and counter it as an individual, then what happens is you bring in the vehicles, you spawn in it, and then hey presto, they're not there in the match that time. Or maybe what's the word? Or maybe at the same time, you know, there's more than one of them, so you just get nuked, and then they just continue to do what they were doing anyway. Like the rock paper scissors idea. Oh, sorry, the rock paper scissors idea works really well when you know what the enemy is bringing, and what you know what your side is bringing. But in realistic and also sim, that doesn't exist, right? You can just spawn and just get countered, and there's nothing you can do about it because you decided to click one vehicle instead of another. It's like going into, I don't know, imagine you go into like a UFC fight or like a boxing match, and you just turn up and you've like trained for like being a welterweight, and you know you've worked on your mobility and you've worked on like moving around and doing all this stuff, and then you just turn up and there's just a heavyweight just staring at you. Like, you're gonna get your face punched in. and you know, you might come out on top, you might be able to do it, but the amount of effort that has to go into that is really tough, and that's why people get burnt out. So yeah, the simulator system is highly abusable and has been for many years, which is why it should not be put in anywhere else. It's a very, very poor setup, because it works on basic rock, paper, scissors when you don't even know what rules the other player is playing with. So we have Jerry. I think Guardians should change traction. Doesn't make sense that heavier vehicles like the King Tiger can climb slopes better than MBTs, and also some wheeled vehicles can climb slopes better than track vehicles. Like, you can get anywhere with the R3. Sure. Why not? Yeah, that's the thing, Holy Rune. Like, that, and I know for a fact that's what people do, because I talked to them about it. They just squad up and just batter people in the head, because no one can do anything about it. Happens all the time. But, yeah, you could play Ground Arcade, but even then, they've actually nerfed a bunch of the CAS elements recently, showing that the CAS has been annoying as hell even there. So. Can't do that in Realistic, though. Can't just remove loadouts from things. Wish you could. But they've never really done that in War Thunder. They've always just added more. So people don't like it when things get removed. I mean, traction's one of those things that gets changed a lot. Like, whatever they do with it, it's always going to cause some kind of issue. I'm fine with whatever. I don't really mind. If they decide to do it one way, sure. They decide to do it other, sure. Like, it just kind of changes how you play those specific maps, right? Like, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. It's I just don't want a situation where you have MBTs billy goating everywhere. Like, it was so annoying back in the day. 38th parallel was easily the one to point towards for this. But back in the day with 38th parallel, you could literally get on top of the dam, like with an MBT, and you could also climb like the back of the map on the other side and just sit in like an elevator position looking over everything and just absolutely crucifying the whole thing. It was one of the most annoying things ever to exist in the game. And as long as we can avoid that setup, sure. It seems like the way that they're dealing with it now, instead of doing it through traction, is they're just straight up removing areas of the map you can go into. so that's pretty much like what's going on now. Like, they're just going, okay, well, we tried the traction stuff, people aren't liking it. Alright, we'll just put a big red X and go, nah. Like, no. Not today. Thank you, though. You like this position? Nah. Which I do find quite funny that they've done that. It's a bit jarring, but at the same time, it's not a huge thing. Like, it's their way of dealing with spawn camping, so people shut up about spawn camping. It is quite funny, though. And we have a way with you, Varbegger. Short subject, mines. Oh no, not mines, please. Anything but mines. Mines is a classic case of people just wanting more and more stuff without thinking. Like, the idea that this exists in real life, therefore it should be here. There's that and the top-down artillery stuff. Those two are like criminal for those ideas, and they will only bring disgrace and annoyance to the world. Nothing good will come of it, ever. Sometimes the status quo is okay. It's alright. So seeing how people want mines, I was thinking it would be a great idea to come up with how mines were with implants. At first we need to spawn point that isn't the mine itself. Instead, we all know how crowded tight spaces can get. Then we hold on, so I was informed that people wanted landmines and not map mines, my bad. Jokes aside, the only realistic way they could add mines without disrupting the game for no reason is to add them outside the playable map. They'd essentially replace the current 20s and magically dead system. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you could, I suppose, add it in that way. Yeah, pretty much, Narayan. But yeah, so I always thought it was funny with the campaigns on one of the Halos. Was it like Halo 3 maybe? Where there were certain areas, if you went outside the map, you just got blasted by a massive cannon. Like, it was like, oh, don't go over here. There's this cannon looking over this area. It's just going to blast you if you stay here too long. So you'd stay there too long, and then you just get blasted by a mega cannon. So yeah, I'd be down for that. Just put a perimeter of just massive guns around the map. Or mines or whatever. And if you go out there, pop, pop, boom, boom. You just blow up. You just get your ammo rack just, disappears. And yeah, I don't know if it ever. I'm guessing it was in multiplayer. I'm guessing it was in multiplayer in the game in Halo, but I'm pretty sure it was in Halo 3 on some of the campaign maps. I remember fighting. What were a Wraith. I remember fighting a Wraith, and then I was going around the area in a Warthog, and I was like, by the way, if you stay in here, you will, you'll die. And I was like, oh, it's okay, I'll just go around the edge, it'll be fine, and I can flank it, and then jump on it, and everything will be happy. And then, boom! it wasn't screwing about. But yeah. What Gaijin would have to do is just to expand the playable area a bit and replace the warning about leaving the combat zone and entering mined area or something. If you choose to ignore it, you step on a mine and learn why adding that mechanic in the hands of fellow players will be annoying than smoke screens. Yeah, I mean, if we really need this to exist, right? If we really, really need it to exist, that's how you do it. I would like to contend we don't need it to exist, though. But yes, that is the way that you would go forward with it. Nonetheless, it's another one of those that exists in real life, so let's add it. Yep, pretty much. And that would usually make even the people seriously asking for it rage if it was implemented, because Gaijin didn't add it in the way they wanted. Obviously, I'm not talking about some fellow who just thought about the suggestion posted and went on with his life. I'm talking about the sorts of people you find on the forums droning on about the same subject for months and years. Yeah, that happens a lot. Oh, let's just do this. There we go. Oh well, might as well have a laugh about stuff like this. Have a good one, Tech, and everyone else reading. Pretty much. I mean, that's what I do nowadays. We just have a giggle and move on. And then people ask me, why don't you take it? Why don't you take this seriously? Because I tried to before, and it's just dumb. So, on Sea of Thieves, if you go on the map, the Red Sea, your ship starts to sink. Yeah, that'll be fun. That's kind of like what they do with the drowning mechanic, I suppose, in War Thunder. Where you just you die over time. But yeah, just screw it at the end of the day. I honestly think sometimes it's best just to have a chuckle and just be like, yeah, okay, whatever, and just move on. I think it's much easier to live with that general mentality instead of the you have to take everything super seriously, and everybody's opinion has to be analyzed to the greatest extent because everybody's opinion is worth looking at. Not really. A lot of businesses and a lot of places figured this out a long time ago. What you do is you placate. You go, oh really, that's cool, tell me more, sounds awesome. And then you go to the next stage, which is, oh, well, what we'll do is we'll think about it. We'll chat to a few other players, or we'll chat to a few other people and see what they think. And then maybe we can get your idea in. And then what you do is you put it in a very milquetoasty way, which actually doesn't affect anything. Or you go, so we talked to these other guys, and they had some pretty cool ideas too. But unfortunately, they don't really vibe with the thing that you were doing. So, you know, we've decided not to go forward with it. But what we've done is we've created this like suggestion thing, and if you want to throw in any more, like, we like the way that you think, and we kind of want to see what else that you can create. If you're interested in our product, you should put it in, and then you just ignore them forever. That's just how all those go every single time. Crazy, isn't it? But the important thing is that the person feels validated, because the person who had no interest in the first place of ever hearing or are interested in what they say, they now feel like they're validated because they think the person has actually taken them seriously. But even from step one, they were never going to take them seriously. Which sucks, right? Like, it sucks that this is how all this works. Like, it has to work through, like, deception and all this stuff. Like, but if you do the opposite, which is what I'm more prone to do, and just go, you know what, I'm not actually that interested in that, or, yeah, I don't think that would work because of this, this, and this, you get so much pushback for it. And also, like, just a lot of people get annoyed at you. So that's why you get a ton of that. Oh, well, that sounds pretty cool, and oh, well, maybe we'll look into it, and oh, we'll have a chat with others. But it just sucks. It's like I was talking something with my father the other day. So in a lot of industries, like the one that he works in and the one that I work in, one of the things there's a lot of like performance upgrade stuff. So you get a lot of questionnaires which are like, hey, so how do you feel about your work? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? You know, do you think it could improve in certain areas? Do you think, you know, this could be better? And you even get like government Q&As where it's like, hey, so you're in this industry, is there anything do you think we could do better? And the problem is, like, nobody wants to rock the boat with any of this stuff, because first of all, it's just to give somebody a job so they could go through the questionnaires and work out, you know, oh, well, maybe we should put a percentage here or whatever. But the whole point of it is, if you actually turn around and are fully honest about things, like, okay, so this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this needs fixing, we need more resources here, the way that this is run just doesn't make any sense, there's too many people involved, it needs to be, like, cut down, you will get, like, you know, emails or calls or whatever, and it'll be like, hey, so we see you saying all this stuff, and we'd like to talk to you. So then you talk to the person, and because everybody else didn't want to be hassled by it or bothered by it, even if they see issues with the system, they answered the questionnaire and, like, the most basic, yeah, everything's fine, blah, 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 move on to the next thing, right? Then you get questioned, you get pushed as the outlier in what goes on, and then eventually you get forced out because nobody wants to deal with you because you're seen as different from the herd, and therefore you are going to be an issue going forward when, you know, pushing towards stuff, which makes the whole Q&A and also the whole feedbacks loop completely worthless. But the problem is, there's been so many cases of this stuff happening in many different industries that there just isn't a push to actually be honest about these things, and it makes more sense for people, especially in this environment, like this job environment, to just not be 100% honest about things and instead just bitch about them in other areas. And it just fucking sucks, because it happens in, like, everywhere in life now. It really has become the fact that people do not speak their mind. And the people who do try and speak their mind the best that possible get castigated because it's different from what everybody else is supposedly thinking, even though they're not thinking it. It's crazy. I don't know, man. Like, I really nowadays, especially in my professional life, I've got used to the fact that there is so many people in so many different areas who are just not interested in any of the boats rocking, as we put it. So nobody wants anything to change. They're fine with the status quo, even if it doesn't work, because it benefits them and they don't want anything to change. It's crazy. Hey, German Tanker, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. Then we have Henning Gesland. It's good to hear the others struggle with Windows updates regarding sound. It's so annoying. It's so annoying that I have to fix things every single time. and it makes me not want to do this stuff, you know, pretty much ever at the end of the day. And yeah, it's kind of annoying. I'm doing good, German tanker. You know, we're just doing the tech talk, and we're spading out the hunt class for the French, which, you know, I like the fire rate of the guns, so it works pretty well. Wish they just did a bit more damage, but that's okay. You know, they're a good contrast to a lot of the other French machines, which do a lot of damage with a pretty rough targeting speed. But yeah, Windows updates are a pain, especially when, you know, you're used to things working, and then the next thing you know, stuff just doesn't work. Whether it's a webcam, whether it's a microphone, whether it's, you know, a piece of software, it's everything just breaks, you know. Kind of annoying at the end of the day. So we have Timothy Bacchus. Let's see. I made a comment a few tech talks back about mines, but I didn't quite flesh out enough and drew some very warranted criticism from you, so I'd like to share more in-depth thoughts. As I said before, I like the idea of mines, but not placed by players. The mines will be randomly placed with pre-designated minefields. They could be clearly marked out with signs around them and a red overlay on the minimap, similar to the out-of-bounds areas, for example. What's the point then? You're just limiting player choice. This is what I meant when I said I would change up the flow of the map. Players could choose the risk being disabled, going through the minefield that they know is there, but the safer bet would be to go around. I'd hope this significantly changes the way people move around the map, giving Gaijin a way to freshen it up without having to go to the effort of redesigning map geometry. No. No. Right, okay. So, there's two problems with this. The first one is if you make the areas pre-designated, and therefore you make the mine pattern pre-designated, people will figure it out pretty quickly. So they'll just take the better areas anyway. If you add an element of RNG to it, meaning where those areas are, or the mine layout that's there, nobody will go through it. Like, I don't know why you would want to add RNG setups to the game, which heavily relies on defensive actions, especially at the lower echelons. It would just make people not want to move. You're just removing options from people to play. Why? If I have like 5 choices, but then you limit me to only 3 choices, is that positive for gameplay? You have removed agency from the player by doing it to fit in a mechanic for some reason. Why? It definitely should have been clearer. I mean, you can, it's all good, but like, once again, why? You're just gonna limit player choice. And one thing that Gaijin doesn't like, and one thing I also don't like, is limiting player choice. I don't want to spawn on a map. Like, it's just like the simulator thing we talked about. Like, okay, I'm going to spawn on this map, and then the enemy is going to have a vehicle I can't counter straight away. Because I decided to spawn in a tank, and they spawned in a helicopter. It's not fun. It just ain't fun. And now let's say, okay, you have like Corellia, and you mine like the bottom part, or you mine like the areas like to go up to the center part. Okay, well, now I can't go those ways. So nobody's going to take the risk to basically just lose a track, especially when previously you could take the risk anyway and just go that way. You're basically funneling people into a point. And one of the biggest issues I have is the conquest mode in War Thunder, because it funnels everybody into a point. So it means that biting becomes concentrated around specific areas, and that's usually when War Thunder is the worst. Hey, Tugnuts, nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing good today. Hopefully life's treating you well. Hopefully you're doing alright. Yeah, we're doing some tech talk stuff. I prefer the other idea for mines, which, you know, was talked about before. If you want mines to be part of a map, right, the way that you do it is you take the red areas that they're filling and then just fill them full of mines. Because they can't go, people can't go there anyway, so just make it so they really can't go there. Hey Kaya, nice to see you. I'm doing good. You know, we're just doing the combatants and the tech talk. I'm doing alright. Just need to stretch my back a bit, but we can do that in a bit. So then we have MJ. Hey Tech, how was your week? It was good. A lot of snow, so I had to do a lot of shoveling. And also sorted out some computer stuff, which is nice. And overall is pretty good. So yeah, positive week. It was one where I didn't do a lot of like content stuff, but did get done a lot of stuff to set up stuff in the future, which is what, you know, sometimes I need personally just to get everything done. So yeah, feeling good, feeling positive, and looking forward to February and onwards, really. Like, everything should be cooking with gas, which is important. I'd like to see versions of some maps used in air battles be implemented in ground. For example, maybe a smaller version of Rocky Pillars or Volcano Valley can be used in ground. Also, are they ever going to bring back White Rock Fortress? I mean, yeah, they could take smaller areas of air maps and put them in ground. They just have to increase the what's the word? They have to increase the fidelity of the like, you know, the actual thing. But yeah, they could do it. It would be quite nice to do. They've done it in the past, so don't know why they wouldn't be able to do it again. The other thing is White Rock Fortress. I don't know why people want it back. It reminds me of Surroundings of Volkalamsk, right? So Surroundings of Volkalamsk is terrible. It's a really bad map, right? And they removed it, and they brought it back, and they did some very minor changes to it, and didn't address any of the issues of the maps. And they just added them back, and they still have the same issues. Crazy, right? Now, White Rock Fortress as a map, the reason why it was removed is because it's super easy to spawn camp on that map. If you are able to win either, well, basically there was like 3 or 4 zones where if you won the battle in those areas, you could spawn camp very easily in full cover. Which was the funny thing, right? And also, at the same time, because the map was pretty tiny, it meant that CAS was incredibly dominant on that map too. Because people would only be defined in very, very minor areas. So, unless they do a pretty big rework of that map, I never really want to see it again. Because it was broken as a map. The actual, like, graphics of it and the way it looked was kind of cool. But the play of the map was the issue, right? So, yeah. I'm sure they'll add it in again. I don't know how they'll add it in, but they will. Because they always do. You know, they're not just going to remove assets and never let them see the light of day again. Because then it's just wasted money, right? But yeah, it's interesting to think about when it'll come back. I just hope it's a full rework and not a Volkalamsk rework where they just don't do anything to it. If it's a Volkalamsk rework on that map, then might as well just throw it in the bin. It's not going to be useful. So we have Leo. I'm glad about the changes, about the protests and following the roadmap. Now we're in, even on high tier, after a good match, around about 100 KSL. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anybody having any issues with SL at all, really, since the changes. The major problem I think I have with it, and I'm pretty sure this is what they're going to do, is with the changes that they made to all of that stuff, they are heavily going to promote the gambling side of things with the SL boxes. So that's how they're going to balance the economy. They're basically going to give a bunch of ways that people can spend SL, and people are going to see a bunch of these options ahead of them and not be able to do them because there's so many of them, and you're going to have a situation where people are just going to get sad and annoyed that they don't make enough SL again because they're going to waste it all on gambling or on any other system that they decide to put in the game. That's something I have seen. I've even seen people trying basically like get back down to 0 SL while doing the gambling stuff, and then using the period between each of the gambling sets to grind out all the different stuff. So yeah, it would be nice if that didn't happen, but I've got a feeling that's what will happen. So that's the only thing to look out for. But it's a minor thing. It's not a huge thing. So we have Organic Junkie. On the topic of map bans, I think the solution is unlimited likes and dislikes. I'd personally be in favour of unlimited map bans for premium account users only, so no more than 5 or 20% of the player base, which is 150 to 200k online, seemingly any moment. If I choose to pay real money for a premium account, I want the option to ban all city clusterfucks, even if it means I wait a long time. How long? How long would you be okay with waiting? Lastly, I'm in huge favour of mixed propulsion aircraft. Just tie the active boosters functionality to turn the secondary engines on and off, exactly like the ME-262s and the Ratos. Yeah, that could work. It would be pretty easy for them to work, but yeah, it would be nice to see. So as I said, the bans and the likes and the dislikes stuff works really well until people can't find matches because of queue times, because so many different people have banned specific different things. So the map, the search filter literally can't find a map for everybody to play. You know, and depending on the time zone and depending on how many people are online and all of this stuff, like, yeah, of course it'll work sometimes for certain time zones and not for others, but also the moment that you make it so the queue time is above a certain point, you will actively see a decrease in the amount of people queuing and trying to take part in the game, or they'll play different BRs and create black holes. So all of this data Gaijin has, right? And they will make decisions based off of that instead of opinions pushed forward by people who want to have more control over what they see map-wise. Because if you can't get into a game, then it doesn't matter what map you are on, right? Would you rather have a situation where you are able to play the game, even if it is on a map that you don't necessarily like? Or would you want a situation where you never get to play the game because you only like a certain map and nobody else does? Or you have to wait like an hour, which is actually something that's happened in the past in stuff like naval. Hey Brian, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing well today. Hopefully life's good. Yeah, I'm doing alright. Just doing the tech talk stuff. Nice to see you too, your local meme. But yeah, so it's just a situation of how all that stuff works, right? Like it is just a numbers game, and also trying not to nuke something, which, you know, if we've seen a lot of games massively get tanked in player base based around these types of ideas, and it's one of those things which is really, really tough to make a decision on. Because even though they've added more maps to the game, they've also made it so certain maps can only be seen at certain tiers. So that's also something interesting. It's always nice to get more choice, and I'm sure they will do it in the future, because, you know, it's just going to happen over time, but it's a tricky one. It really is. So then we have HK or H Klassenhutten. Video 4 of asking TEC to cover War Thunder's toxic seal clubbing. What, you mean like people going to low BRs and hitting up new players? Yeah, I think it's kind of dumb. I don't know why people do it. As I've said many times, I don't really get a buzz out of, you know, annihilating people in a video game. You know, I prefer having a nice house. I prefer having a good family. I prefer doing well in my actual job instead of, haha, noobs, I got 10 kills in a video game. Like, I don't know. Feel like flex-wise, there's much higher things, right? I don't know, I'd class it as toxic, but we've talked about the word toxic before. I really dislike the word toxic and how it's become part of society. It sucks because it's a terrible word. It's a very ambiguous word. I also don't like trying to, you know, see malice in things when people might just be trying to have fun and that's the stuff that they want to play. But as I said, I honestly think that it's just not fun to do it. But if people find fun in it, then how do you deal with that? And what happens if they add in a new tech tree? What are veteran players supposed to do? Like, for example, right? So right now I'm in the combatant, which is a destroyer which was added, I don't know, when was it added? A few updates ago. It was added after I ground out the French tech tree, right? So how do I play this? Because it's a low tier blue water vehicle. I'm technically going to be playing against people who are new to the game, at least some of them. Am I allowed to play this? Am I toxic for playing it because I want to spade it? How does that work? But yeah, it's a weird one. War Thunder is very good at giving you a lot of opportunity to play what you want, but as always, when so much opportunity is given, it can cause issues. So, so how do you kind of balance those two things? I think giving more of a kind of a space for people to experiment with stuff in War Thunder, and also making it so crew skills don't have as much of an advantage as they do, is probably the way I would go with these types of things. I think that's definitely something I would focus on. Crew skills not being as powerful as they are, especially in naval and also ground. But yeah, that as well. Like, to show, technically we have one of the best systems for anti-seal clubbing in the game, where you can't grind out the whole of the game, or you can. It takes you years to grind out, you know, the high ranks of the game with low ranking vehicles. That's probably one of the best ways in a game to try and reduce those types of things. But yeah, they could add more protections and stuff, but I don't think it's as big of an issue as, you know, people lead it to believe. I also don't know what a seal clubber is, like, in terms of War Thunder. What if I'm like an aviation main and I and I play a metric ton of Air Realistic, right? But I haven't played tanks in like 5 years. But I'm level 100. I've done a bunch of the events. I have like a bunch of the vehicles and stuff like that. And I go into like ground reserve, but I'm a level 100 in ground reserve. But I've never played ground before. Like, how does that work? It's very hard to work these things out, you know. And for example, like when they added the Hungarian tech tree, or when I played the Chaba, and the Chaba was severely overBR'd. Even even at 1-0, it's overBR'd, funnily enough. So like in situations like that, what do you do? Because, you know, I kind of want to play that new vehicle. I want to spade it. I want to move on. But by doing it, am I kind of breaking the rules? I don't know. But as I said, I don't get what enjoyment people get out of seal clubbing. I don't think I ever will. I personally just find it kind of a drag. Like when I have to go to low BRs to do the page of history stuff, like when it's like rank 1 and you play like the Panzer 2, it just gets so dull for me. Because it's just doing the same things over and over again. It's like robotic because, you know, you don't have to think, you don't have to like try and work around things using a spaded vehicle with a good crew. You basically just relax and just pom and then goes to the next thing. It's nuts. But yeah, it's weird. So we have speed. Cass is strong, sure, but SPAA is even better at top BR. No, I disagree. They nerfed a lot of the SPAAs very, well, not very recently, but like 6 months ago. And also, there's a bunch of nations that still don't have good SPAAs at the highest echelon. Like, if you have a look at the SPAAs that a lot of nations have, they're not great. Yeah. The weaponry, put it like this, there's a reason why the CAS caps out at 11, sorry, the AA caps out at 11.7 and the CAS caps out at 12.7 now. And it's not because the AAs are too strong, you know. Like it's crazy. Oh yeah, the League of Legends questionnaire. Yeah, that's so if you don't know where toxicity comes from in gaming, it's a guy called Riot Light. Riot Light was a psychology major. He worked for Riot Games, and his general idea was to make people better humans through gaming. The problem is, he was screwed up himself. He actually abused his partner at the time and was just generally not a nice dude. And also had a very skewed opinion of what is good. He actually wanted to implement his findings through surveys and also through player behavior into academic circles, so such as high schools, and make it influence teaching in high schools on how, you know, people teach kids to make them better human beings. And he tried to link a lot of video game things to real life things. And I do actually think there is a good link between if people are, you know, doing well in their own lives compared to, you know, in the game. I think if somebody is in a negative situation, they probably are not going to have a good time in life. But this is the type of things that they would ask in the survey in League of Legends. So if somebody got reported a bunch, they'd send this questionnaire. Think about what happened during the last 7 days when you answer these questions. During the last 7 days, I threatened to hurt or hit somebody. I said things about others to make people laugh. I got angry very easily. I teased someone. I fought back when someone hit me. I slapped or kicked someone. I got into a physical fight. I was angry most of the day. I call other people names. I pushed or shoved other people. I encouraged other people to fight. So he's straight up going like, oh, these guys got reported in a video game. This must mean that they were annoyed or they were in physical confrontations in their actual life. Like, he's just, once again, go and read about him. He was a nutcase that got given the reins of a very high-profile company with this idea of making humanity better. Those people, you got to be very afraid of those people. Hey, guess where he works now? Meta or Facebook. So let's make the world a better place through marketing and advertising. So it's really fun, really enjoyable. So we are mostly here to watch. On the topic of coordination, why doesn't War Thunder have a chat system between all users besides the keyboard? I'd like to talk to other people besides my squad mate. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be cool. Hopefully in the future they have a think about it. So people who played too much League went completely psycho. Well, there was this idea. It wasn't even if the idea was pretty simple. At that time when League of Legends came out, there was a big push in the gaming industry about the whole idea that video games cause violence, just like how heavy metal supposedly cause violence, just the way that all of these things cause violence, yada yada yada. It's not true, never has been true. It can cause annoyance, but the idea that somebody being annoyed in a video game would lead them to kill somebody, you would have to have some other things going on at the same time, right? Like, there are examples where there was a dude, I can't remember, was it in like World of Warcraft, where somebody like got a raid item because it's RNG what drops in those games, and he literally went to the dude's house and shot him, right? But like, you know, you have to have other things going on, because otherwise everybody would be doing that, right? Everybody would be losing their ticket all the time. So it's just one of those things that people like to point towards because it's an easy thing, right? It's an easy ploy just to go, this thing's violent, therefore it causes violence, right? It's baby's first psychology lecture, and the thing is, it's not even true, because it can have actually the opposite effect and even just have no effect at all. Riot Light believed in this idea, but also believed in the idea that people were projecting their violence from their lives into the video game. So therefore, if you could work out the people who were being violent or being aggressive, like taking out their violence in a video game, you could then work out that they're not doing very well in their actual lives, and then work out, using that, what is wrong with them and what you need to do to fix them, or to make it so the next generation doesn't do that. So if therefore you are not doing well in life and it is shown through the video game, then they can use the video game to improve your life. That was his idea. He's a nutcase, and pretty much everything he ever did with it just didn't work. Like the only thing he was able to do was to do some very heinous data collection on what a lot of the time was just kids, right? Because a lot of the stuff that this was aimed towards was high schoolers. So you're basically getting high schoolers to do questionnaires to kind of talk about things that are going on in their lives, and instead of just, you know, playing a video game. Imagine if Gaijin did that, you know? Imagine if Gaijin did a questionnaire of, you seem to be low on SL balance. What is your IQ? Do you understand how standard maths works? Complete these 3 equations. Right? Like stuff like that. It'd just be nuts, right? But that's what he did. But yeah, going back to this question, coordination would be great. It would be really good to have more coordination. It actually turns out that economic factors influence child violence the most. Definitely does. And it's the wonderful conversation that is awful to have, because people never like talking about economic factors, which is why nowadays they don't talk about economic factors. They talk about social economic factors, because you can add in a bunch of dumb factors that you can focus on that isn't actually the reason, because people in power don't want those things fixed. But story for another day. Once again, like, status quo is positive for many, especially in terms of doing what they want to do. So we have unique scorpions. Let's talk about the 2A7 and its win rate of 96% right now. Jesus. Under Spore Line, I would teach everything. Myself and a buddy who average at 1.8-ish KD. In most tanks are getting fed up with the T90M Spore Liner doing absolutely nothing. 2A7B wanted to be plus, taking the world's greatest beating like it's nothing. T90M doesn't feel like a top tier tank, to be honest, so I've begun grinding Sweden and finishing Germany. Top tier has been so annoying and unfun. The pace is way too fast as well when you're in a 1v1 when 4 enemies show up out of the blue. Lastly, they need to bring helicopter spawn AA back. It's a bit ridiculous when every time I spawn in, I'm immediately killed by a heli or plane camping the spawns. I mean, fair. Like, you're basically just doing what everybody else does, which is just following the meta, right? And that's just what top tier is, because once people get to top tier, they want to play the best stuff because they feel like they've earned it. And also, in order to get to the highest echelon stuff, usually you have one or two things. It's either you want to grind a specific nation out because you like the specific nation, or you want to just play the best vehicles. And that's just how it goes. It's been this way since day one, and it's like this way in pretty much every other game that exists. That's why a lot of hero duelers or MOBAs, a lot of the roster of champions doesn't get used because people just want to play the stuff that has the high win rates. Just how it is. But yeah, top tier sounds awful right now, but I feel like we've been saying that for 3 or 4 years. I'll play it in a month or so and see how it is. The T90M just lacks so many things that other standard vehicles have. A reverse gear, decent acceleration, good targeting speed, a good reload. I don't know why anybody was looking forward to it. It's just worse than the T80 BVM. I don't know. But yeah, you can't balance top tier, because even if you do balance it, it's going to change in 3 months. So enjoy it. It'd be much easier just to follow the pony, or just, you know, enjoy life. There we go. Yeah, I'm glad that they added the T90M though, because now they're kind of forced to go on to the next stage, which is much more the fun one. You know, the weird ass prototype stuff they did at the fall of the Soviet Union and the start of the Russian Federation. Hey everyone, nice to see you. I almost didn't survive yesterday. I had to help out some family stuff, and we had a doctor's appointment. So also got my missus's PC sorted out, which was nice. Yeah. And we have another user, Cass. The game does not reflect historic reality 95% of the time of all real life Cass. Well, it doesn't represent reality 100% of the time. War Thunder is not a realistic game in the sense that it is realistic. It's realistic in terms of its models and mechanics, but the actual gameplay and the maps and everything are not realistic. You know, it's just how it goes. What you are seeing in game is in-flight artillery. Corrections, increased spawn points is a good one, but also increase the reward for taking cast down. Yep, that's fair. So then we have Sun. Let's just say that. Why J9 early is not on the marketplace? They don't put the early premium event vehicles on the marketplace anymore. I don't know why. It's probably because whenever they did, they were super cheap and, you know, there was just a million of them. So they just decided not to do it for some reason. Like if you have a look at what vehicle was it? Was it the SU-76M or something? When they started doing the marketplace stuff, I remember the Polish-British vehicle, the Garland, was it? The Garland was the one that was the funniest for the longest time. Because the Garland, it literally had... It was like 2 Gaijin coin for like years. It probably still is. Like it... So the problem with them putting that stuff on the marketplace is that they're super cheap, and it means that less people are going to focus on grinding the event. Because, you know, why would you? When you could just buy it for like $2. Which is what's going on with all the other vehicles as well, but, you know, it could be even worse. So not really a surprise to see it the way that it is. For me personally, I'd like to see it on the market. I'd like to see them bring it back in old events so more people get access to it and stuff. But yeah, I also understand that I live in what seems to be a very different world to people making these decisions. But it is how it is. You know, live, laugh, learn, love, laugh. Then we have Kokoda. They shouldn't make cast more expensive. They should make cast cheaper. Then make fighters and AMs dirt cheap. Cheap enough to spawn a fighter at the start. A lot of fighters and multi-role vehicles. If I can spawn a P-47 or a P-51 at the start of a battle, like, I can just destroy so many light vehicles you wouldn't even imagine. Scouts would just get obliterated at the start of a battle. So yeah, I'm not really hugely in favor of that. Would prefer probably a different setup. But yeah. Don't know about that one, personally. Do I mean ICBM? Intercontinental Ballistic Missile? No, I meant IBCM. You know, otherwise I would have written ICBM. Because the thing is, I didn't want anybody to actually think about ICBMs in there, even though we talked about them in the thing. IBCM is actually a really interesting company. So I wanted people to learn more about how IBCMs work and how it's all set up. So, yeah. Good old internet-based client management systems. There's companies which pretty much manage them for other companies, and yeah, it's a fun thing, you know. It's kind of interest to look into how they work, but yeah, intercontinental ballistic missiles are kind of boring, so we didn't really want to chat about it. So that's from Tiberino. Then the next one is Lagaro. Do you know anything about coming vehicles? Something for the USSR? I do. The IL-8 and the Battle Pass. Obviously, that's coming in. USSR as a nation is always going to get new stuff. There's obviously some leaks last year about things that may come out, but as we talked about before, anything that isn't publicly known, I'm not really going to talk about because it's not really my place. I've talked about it, the last little bit. I actually kind of like, sometimes getting hyped about stuff and having a bit of fun with it. So, there's a metric ton of people at Gaijin who are paid for marketing. And it would be nice to see them actually do some marketing around that stuff. I look forward to it this year. So, I'll leave it up to all the other sets at the end of the day and see what they come up with. Should be quite good. It's kind of one of those things that's pretty key with a lot of places now, and kind of sucks that it is, but c'est la vie. So yeah, of course Russia will get stuff in the future. Things will turn up as they always do. And yeah, we'll just have a good time with it. Hey Teddy, nice to see you, man. We're just doing the tech talk and spading out some French vehicles. It's going well. Going all right. The A10 trailer, yeah, exactly. As long as we don't get an A10 trailer, we'll be fine. So we have I suck at BF5. No, where my timestamps. I know it's only been an hour or something. Yeah, I mean, Kawam-chan's been doing really good on the timestamps. But yeah, it's one of those things that's a little bit tough to do. And it's been super nice of them to do it over the time. And yeah, literally, as I said, like, if people want to do it, they can do. Like, I can get you games. I can, the way I see the tech talks is it's a lost leader. So the amount of money that I put into it is more than what it costs. No, that's not right. The amount of money I put into it is more than the revenue generated from it. And I think that's fine to do because I enjoy doing it. And this year, we're going to focus a lot on just kind of having fun and doing these things. And I think it's important to have stuff like this. So let's continuing and keep going. So we have Maxwell. Hello, I've seen you mention a vehicle by Yas Queen. What vehicle is it? The Gay Archer? And why is it called that? It's not the Gay Archer, no. That would be a bit on the nose. No, the Yas Queen is the Gripen, because it's the JAS 39. So it's the Yas. That's pretty much it, It's just how it is. Hey, you look after the most important thing to show, That's the main thing. But yeah, the Yas Queen is the Gripen, so just because of its name. The Gay Archer is just the Gay Archer, I understand that on YouTube, especially there's a bunch of stuff which is designed to like hear like certain words and kind of mark you down for certain things, but for me, I'm not really that bothered by that stuff. Like, if they want to give community warnings on things like that, then that's okay. But obviously it's just the vehicles. It's not being used derogatorily. Then we have Churchill Soir. Oh, they don't want to make the crap game better simply by adding to a buggy, laggy so-called game ICBM and other crap. Instead, to fight cheap bots. And you only marketing as always. Fair enough. I mean, I've never really seen myself as like a marketing tool when it comes to Gaijin stuff. I think for me, I'm pretty fair when it comes to all this. Like, I kind of point out things I don't like and talk about things I do like. Even like the last week, right? Like, if we have a look at the videos, we did one yesterday talking about one of the special offers, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in a while in War Thunder. Like the idea, okay, so you want to buy the USS Douglas, but we're going to discount it for you, but we're also going to give you some SL boosters that actually make it more expensive than what you would just buy it for standardly, which is kind of silly. Why can't we unload a loaded shell when trying to use a different shell? No, that was actually my special offer, Teddy. Not I got a special offer for the Dougie and the SL boosters, which is probably very similar to what you did. But yeah, it seems like those types of offers are going all over the place. But there are certain vehicles that can get their rounds unloaded, and there are other vehicles that don't, right? So that's basically why. It's just a historical thing. So yeah, I was pretty heavy on them when it comes to the gambling stuff. I really don't like the gambling stuff. I've talked about, improving battle passes, improving events, talked a lot about the issues I have when it comes to the bug reporting and the suggestion stuff. Like, I don't know how more critical of things I can be, apart from turning around and just lying. Like, when it comes to all the stuff, I try to be as honest as possible, and I think that's always the best policy, personally, but it's definitely not the best policy when it comes to content creation. But yeah, I think overall I try and give my honest opinion about stuff. Like, I don't feel like I'm, trying to shy away from topics, or I've never been told not to cover something or cover something on behalf of Gaijin. If that's the case, then I'd get paid for it, wouldn't I? There's a lot of content creators nowadays which are brought in as contractors or employees, so maybe worth chatting to them about that stuff. So we have IBCM. Yeah, from Torpy. Good old IBCM. I just really didn't want... The reason why I put IBCM, and I know people think it's a typo, and that's fine, but it's... The reason why I put that instead of ICBM is I just didn't want to read a bunch of comments about, like, oh, well, they should add these things to the game. Like, because it's like the mine thing again, right? Like, it would be silly. Let's not go down that route. Let's just relax, and let's go from there, You don't know what's a good way to get more boosters? Page of history, Warbond shop, tournaments, daily logins, I got one the exact same and put it on Axe Discord the other day. 1340% boosters. Yeah, I got like 1075% boosters or something. Great. And they valued it at 3,500 GE. Discounted to 2,500 GE. Are you joking, mate? Like, what are you talking about? That's just ridiculous. Well, the thing is, I have a bunch of wages, in my game that I have, that are just kind of sat there, not doing too much. But yeah, it's been absolutely crazy, those offers. Like, I don't know why anybody would pick them up. But then again, like, it's very obvious they're trying to reduce the worthiness of those offers. So it's just how it is. Hey, more, nice to see you. Oh, God. Alright, does anybody have any other questions? Since we're at the end of the real ones for the tech talk. Hey, Bidoo, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Does anything spring to mind? We're able to do quite a lot. We did the page of history and then also the combatant. So that one didn't take too long, which was quite nice. And we need to do the Vaqueline as well. This one's actually super similar to the Battle Pass one that's coming out. Apart from it loses one of these turrets to a 4-inch gun and also has slightly different secondaries. But it has this really annoying setup for torpedoes. Next naval nation, which one will it be? Ooh, buddy. Iceland. Nah, Sweden makes the most sense, right? Sweden or China. China, they could just do a bunch of copy-paste. But then again, for Sweden, they could do too. So it's just how it is. Thoughts on the 25T at 8 ohm? Probably shouldn't have given it that round, should they? Probably shouldn't have given it that round. What are we going to do with a highly mobile vehicle that goes super fast forwards and super fast backwards with a low profile that also can scout? My, it goes up in BR again? No way. How many times do we have to see the same things happen? Oh, we hit level 150 on the Battle Pass too. So that's good. Yeah, I do need to change my hanger. I'll change it by next week. I still can't get my green screen thing to work, so just gets annoyed at me when I try it. See, still don't work. Don't know. It was working like 2 days ago. I got it to actually work, and now it's just not working again. I don't get it. Why won't you love me? Why won't this work? It's so annoying. Got your first nuke with the 229. Well done, man. Good stuff. Lovely. Right, we'll end the tech talk here. We'll continue streaming. I need to get some food and stuff though, but yeah, good tech talk. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. And we'll be back next week as always. And with the new Battle Pass, which this Battle Pass ends in what, like 3 days, 4 days? 3 days, so should get an announcement on Monday about the new stuff. Anyway, look after yourselves. See you soon. Bye-bye.